Everyone join me with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Okay, we're going to open up to, before we open it up to public input, I'm going to have the Vice Chair go over some of our public input norms.
We will have one 15-minute public input session at the beginning, and a second one possibly at the end, at the discretion of the Chair. Please make sure you give your name and the town you are from. The board may grant, the chair may grant non-residents to speak at his discretion. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes. And remember that we can't discuss individual personnel issues at this meeting. If you have concerns about individual employees, you need to contact principal or the superintendent.
Okay. With those norms said, do we have any public input this evening? Anyone at all? Okay, public input, moving on to the acceptance of the minutes of March 8th, 2018. Everyone get a chance to look those over? We have a motion from Joanne, second from Becky. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any abstentions? We were all here last time? Outstanding, 9-0. Student report.
Alright, so due to a little bit of snow, there hasn't been any school days from last meeting to this one. So I only got a few things. So today, in honor of the 17 students who were killed in Parkland, there was a slideshow presentation that had in the auditorium from 10 to 10:17. From what I hear, that presentation was very nice and many students enjoyed it. However, some students did do a walkout afterwards in the A parking lot from like 11 something to the end of school. I don't believe this was approved, and there are mixed feelings about it in the school from both sides, students who walked out and students who remained inside. So that will be interesting in the days to come. And Culture Night was tonight at the school. If you guys got to see it, it was really cool. There was a lot of cool displays and food to try. And the Noble Theater Department went to One Acts a couple weekends ago, and they took second, which is the first time Noble has won in the past 11 years. So that's what's happening.
Thank you very much.
I'd just like to say that I did watch the slideshow that Sue sent to us, and it was very moving, very well done. I'm proud of our kids.
Yeah, some of the concerns that I heard from some citizens were that we're promoting, the liberal agenda, that we're promoting an anti-Second Amendment and so forth. What we were doing was saying that you're not going to, it would be extremely difficult to bar students from participating in something like that. You can say you don't condone and things like that. Student expression was around not guns and gun safety. That never even came up. It was about the tragedy of the loss of life in Marjorie Stone Douglas High School, and that's strictly where it stayed. It was about a 12-minute slideshow presented by Jared Brutus and Ray Horn, and then followed by a 5-minute silence, and then students respectfully, 130 students by my count, got up and walked back to class. Then something else came about that a senior wasn't happy about, I guess feeling that the administration had controlled that, and so put out a call to have people walk out. And I think some people did that thinking that they were doing something political and making a statement and taking a stand. But we're also dealing with late adolescence, early teen years. And I also know that some kids got up to, by telling other kids, I'm skipping class, and there's no surprise to that. Or, I was a little surprised when I saw that there was pizza being delivered by a local variety store. Kids ordered pizza and Coke and played music, and parents dropped off blankets and stuff like that. I'm not sure how that's taking a stand, but to each their own. So the second event that occurred will be handled just like any other time when a student misses class without approval. So, no real bit.
I thought the letter you put out to the community was really appropriate. You covered all the bases, left the door open for dissent, as I recall, and if there was any, and the kids had all the First Amendment rights were covered.
We felt so. I think there was misunderstanding by a couple of the students who organized, or I wouldn't say organized, called for today's additional walkout, saying that they didn't feel like they had the opportunity to do that previously. And actually, if they went back to my letter, they would see that we were providing the space. The students did elect to do that, and I was clear we would not stay there and bar a door or something like that. So, just students doing something that they felt they needed to do.
Any other comments? Moving on to number 6, the draft calendar.
So we're still in the works. As you know, there's regulation around, all of the sending schools and the receiving schools for the Sanford Regional Technical, any career and technical education, ECTE center, must have compatibility in their calendars with no more than 5 out of sync days. This year we're at 4 out of sync days, so we did not get a call to come and appear before the commissioner. As last year, all 8 superintendents needed to sit there and try to come to some conclusions with the representatives of the commissioner's office. So it's problematic when you have different contracts where somebody will say ours can't start till here, and you have to give them these days. Like somebody might put into a contract that the day before April vacation or the day before February vacation is when they have high absences from adults is a contracted day that's not in school, not in session. Because the other districts that don't have that either have to say, well, that's an out-of-sync day, or we're all going to do that. So, for instance, this year on April 13th, we put that in the calendars across the board, I believe, so that we would not incur our 5th out-of-sync day. This gets a little trickier because in the teacher contract right now, it says that the school year begins on September 1st and runs through June 30th. So. Typically, we have had 2 professional development days that occur in late August. And last year we had a memorandum of understanding about that there would be those 2 days, and so we just start the calendar with that. There's a sense that that's not going to be, that a memorandum of understanding would not take place this year. I don't believe that the executive board for the Teachers Association is in favor of that. We don't have a lot of options around that, and if you look at this particular draft calendar, what it notes is that at the end of the school year, there are additional teacher workshop days. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 of them, because what we have to do in order not to pick up any more out-of-sync days. For instance, we can't, if the school year starts on September 4th, we can't say, well, that's the first student day, but let's make it the first teacher day, and then we'll get going. Every other district picks up an out-of-sync day with us because we made one change in the calendar. So we're really torn about this. I don't think that this is sound educational practice not to have those days up front. I wouldn't want to be a new first-year teacher. Just as a simple example, who comes in and says, I don't even have a day that I'm supposed to, that all my teammates are going to be with me. I see who's on my team, and I hear from them about some of the operations of the school that I want to know about, some of the curriculum and things like that. But I have to be able to put a calendar out that meets the requirement by state statute for the CTEs and meets the contract language. So right now, this draft is where we're at. The board does need to adopt a calendar. I think it's might be May 31st. May what? May 15th.
You still have one day to play with? You said you had 4 out of syncs?
Yeah, so this year we have 4 out of 6. For next year's calendar, they have not all been, the boards are still working with them, so we still haven't gotten to the point of putting the full set down with all of them and counting them up.
Just had a question. What happens, like yesterday, Sanford had a late start, and we didn't have school.
Yeah.
So how does that work for the kids?
So if they had if you have a 2-hour delay, it counts as a day. If you don't have a 2-hour delay, if you have no school, it doesn't count.
But
So-
our kids couldn't go to class.
Oh, for Sanford?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the statute used to read that it was 11 out of sync days, and then when you combine the 11 out of sync days, plus some discrepancy between when kids are actually there and not, with different schedules like that. One superintendent, let's say the storm's hitting the coast more than inland, and so they don't have school. Well, there's another day that students aren't in session. So how many total days do kids really experience that kind of disruption? They have to get 375 hours in order to earn their certifications. So at SRTC. So that's problematic. That's a difficult thing, but we usually try to figure out ways to help students work to earn their total time.
I notice on this calendar that graduation is a little bit later.
Yes,
next
it
year.
is. Yeah.
Very wise.
Now, so can I, while you're mentioning graduation, can I talk about snow days?
Oh, I was going to lead to that anyway, because I noticed you still only have 5 snow days. I'm wondering when you're going to learn the lesson.
Well, here's the way it works. If you put something in the last week of June, first of all, the schools are not designed to be in 85, 90 degree weather. It's not like a home. You don't leave if at home you decide to leave your windows open at night, just have the screens down, that's different. Or if you open up a front door and you just let the air through and have a screen door. We're not opening up our doors during the day. We have locked envelopes. So there's no movement of air that way. And then the other part that we have is at night, even on the second floor, we're not saying it's a good idea to leave all kinds of windows open. That is asking for difficulty.
This is a question because I'm ignorant, but there's school vacations here, like February and April, and they're vacation days. Is there a way to change them from a vacation day to a snow day? So you have snow days in your April vacation, that in the event that you don't need to use up snow days, great kids, you still have April vacation. But we used up 9, so you're still coming in on Monday and Tuesday, and you have 3 days left of your April vacation.
You could do that. There is a district, I'm not sure where it is, I forget, I saw it in the news just the other day, they were using vacation time to offset there. I think they were at 12 total snow days or something like that, not even including this. Well, they didn't get snow days, they just had 12 days.
I mean, well, to your point of the schools not being designed for June, July weather,
Yeah.
April's fine time to be in Maine.
You could do that. I think that the attendance on those days would be somewhat difficult, and you'd have to honor, well, April 13th, I'll get into that on this snow day thinking, because April 13th is in the calendar as a vacation day, because we're trying to do the in-sync thing with the other districts, not accrue an extra day. But in my recommendation, I'm saying use that as a school day to help recoup time. So we already know that we have some staff who have probably booked flights and things like that, so that's a different case. So what are you saying to the employees? You have to say you're going to honor that. This is the calendar that we put forward. And then you have to figure out, well, what's the percentage of people that we have, how many substitutes are we going to need, can we cover it? And then I think the student participation would work out. You have to have 50% plus 1. They have to have just one more student than 50% across the schools. So on January 2nd, for instance, where the high school wasn't open, I forget what the reason for that was.
The ice, the pipes.
Oh, the sprinkler system, yeah. So when that occurred, the rest of the district had a total of 68% attendance. So that doesn't count today, strangely enough, against even seniors. So that's a little odd.
There's some schools that are starting to put together packets.
Blizzard bags?
Yeah.
Blizzard
Is
bags?
that-
So there's two things about the blizzard bags, and they're going to be running into a difficulty with somebody in Augusta. One is you need to, as another district, because I've looked into that avenue, I know they have used them in New Hampshire, and they may still have them authorized to use, and I think they're a great idea, especially with Google Classroom and so forth. So according to the Commissioner's office, you have to guarantee that your teachers will be accessible online or by phone to any student that wants to place a call or send an email.
And we can't do that?
Well, actually, when you're talking about blizzard conditions like the other day, I can guarantee you who does and doesn't have access to any communication. So there's that piece, but then the other piece is that the Commissioner's office needs to first approve that you are allowed to use those. There has been no approval at the Commissioner's office to say that Maine can use blizzard bags. They're approved in New Hampshire, but not in Maine. So it's a non-starter for me.
Do you get the sense that they're opposed to it?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so, because they haven't kicked in. And New Hampshire's been doing it, I think, 3 years.
Does the Commissioner's office offer any solutions to the sort of increased number of facilities that we're having?
See, you can request a waiver. We had a 2.25 day waiver, 2.5 day waiver last year. Because you submit your plan on how you're going to make up the majority of the days, and then not to cause schools to go into excessively, like the June 25, 26, 27. To avoid that, they will do a partial waiver, but you have to show your due diligence, which we're trying to do anyways, because we want the school time for students. But it's tough when you're, 3:30 in the morning on Wednesday, yesterday, saying, I got two choices. I'm either putting buses on the road, hearing from drivers, I had done a 2-hour delay, and then I heard from drivers for the bus department that, are you hearing the roads are all set to go, because these roads are not ready to go. And they were telling me about certain roads that they were on that weren't all side roads, some of them were main roads. So you got a choice, you're either going to put 1,700 kids in buses, that's a daily ridership, and take a chance with it, or you're going to pass on it. And I'm a little bit more on the cautious side, so I elected not to do that. And I think, I look back at yesterday and think, there's a possibility we probably could have gotten that in, but hindsight's great.
It was a mess. From one that did not do that, that had to go to school yesterday,
Yeah.
it was a mess.
It was a slow drive, for sure.
I had to go out in
Yeah,
the morning and the roads were really slimy.
I'm sorry?
I had to go out in the morning and the roads were really slimy.
And I'm not interested in I don't want to be the person watching the bus that rides on Prospect Hill coming down the backside of that. I mean, just to be serious, that's one of the steepest hills in our district, and you have to be able to provide access to all the roads, or it doesn't matter, you're not providing access to any of the roads.
So, not to belabor the point, but the idea of loading up a vacation with snow days, though, if it's in the calendar for next year, I think teachers could go, hey, that's the most not reliable week. It'd be no different than someone buying an airline ticket for the week after the last day, thinking, hey, summer. But now we got to stay a week later.
April vacation would be a little more secure than February vacation.
Well, February's still snowing. I mean, you know, come March or so, hey, we've only had 6 days. So
Did you just say we'd know come March?
I think, well, by the end of March. Comes in like a line. Comes in like a line
So
out.
with the vacation, there's no contractual issues with teachers, that's not, for making up those days?
I I don't think it lists that there's a requirement that there's a February, and I'd have to go back and check it, but I just don't think it lists specifically, you have to have a February vacation, and you have to have an April vacation. So I think your point is viable.
Yeah.
And we keep the kids out of hot buildings. Hopefully, they still get their April vacation if, this stops, please.
But the other schools would have to buy into that too, though.
Not the other sending schools with the vocational. Our kids would still be out, like technically they'd be out of sync if we did April, the first 2 days in April, the first 2 vacation days, not the holiday. And we know that kids couldn't be sent to Sanford, but I think that's the reason that the State Department set it from 11 days down to 5, which is because they said, we know you can have this, plus you have these other things that are going to happen. Now, I think if a district decided to do away with February and April vacations and combine to one March vacation, I think then you'd have a major issue, because that would be a calendar piece instead of a, here we are on a snow day.
Oh, wait, food for thought. You're going to talk about snow days for this year.
Yep. So this is something that I worked with some administrative representatives on. This is a draft, capital word draft. And I know that I need to work with each of the associations to make sure that each employee who has an agreement with us for what they will receive for number of days work and number of hours and so forth will be made whole. So I do understand that we need to have some flexibility and we need to make sure that people who have planned wages don't lose those wages. So the dates that we had 2 storm days, October 30, 31, and we had 7 snow days, so we've got 9 days. Seniors are required a minimum of 170 days in the calendar. So currently, our seniors have 173 days in there up to June 8th. So if we back off the 9 days, they're at 164. So we know that our seniors are 6 days short. Our K-11 minimum of 175, and they're the full 9 days short. So the recommendation for everybody that I'm going to be making is that April 13th it become a scheduled, it's scheduled as a vacation day, but make it a school day, possibly a half a school day, possibly a whole school day. I'd have to look into what that means as far as who has airplane tickets in hands and things like that. I think we could work through that and be fair with people about it. The requirement by the state is as long as there is a 3-hour minimum and a meal served, it counts as a day. So late starts, early dismissals from April 5th through June 7th. We could recoup 18 hours. A school day, oops, that says 3 hours. Should say 6 hours, that's my typo. So Mike Roberts sent me a note on that. I was like, what is he talking about? So 6 hours, when you recoup hours like that, partial hours, 6 hours represents the school day, so that would be 3 school days. So April 13th, and that would be 4 school days for everybody. Seniors would have 2 half-day Saturdays, which right now tentatively look like May 19th and May 26th. That way they would recoup all of their time in the first 3 steps. And then for the K-11, if steps 1 and 2 recoup 4 days already, and the 5 snow days that we have built in anyways, make up the 9 total days for that, barring any nor'easter next week, which is on the horizon.
I will plan on it.
Tuesday night. So that's the current thinking. I'll put this out to the public as well, and then I'll get feedback from associations. And Rick Ingalls represents the support staff, Shannon Rogers, the AFL-CIO, and Chuck Bragdon and Jamie Holmeyer Stewart represent Teachers Association, so I'll work with each of those groups to see what goes and what doesn't.
Question. The 5 snow days don't help the seniors because they take place after
June 8th.
Unfortunately, is there like maybe plan 1A that includes whatever's coming next week?
So for
Is there any wiggle room, I guess?
Plan 1A would be that you start adding hours to the day for seniors.
So after what you just proposed, anything above and beyond would literally be more hours in the day?
Yeah, it would be saying that the day is going to now end, instead of at this time, it ends a half an hour later.
You wouldn't toss in just another Saturday?
We already got two
Pretty
Saturdays.
darn hard.
Kind of like they do
We
it
had
with video games.
86% attendance on the first Saturday that we used last year, and we had 84% on the second, so they turned out to be really good. In advantageous use of days. I don't want to push my luck too much
April
with that.
vacation,
What's that?
April vacation.
And we're taking away that April 13th day as well. I think the first time you try to do something like that, like digging into a vacation, you're going to run into a lot of problems without having given people advance notice that that's a possibility.
I thought that was a good idea for next year.
Yes.
For next year.
Yeah.
So, will the commissioner accept half hours at the end of a day as a makeup?
Well,
Because
so last year, that was part of our proposal, and the answer was no, and it was, you have to add it in hour increments.
Right.
And then when we had the Saturdays, for instance, you required a minimum of 3 hours, and I said, well, let's add an hour to that. No, a day is a day, a day can't be more than a day. Okay, I'm losing that one.
Yeah.
So we could add an hour increment instead of a half an hour increment. It kind of, it's a little silly to me that you can add a certain amount of time, but you can't add less than that. I'd have to look into what other options we had, because otherwise than that, we're pushing other things back that are difficult enough to try to get in.
What about the transportation schedule? If you extend the day,
Well, we're a
Not
two-tiered
necessarily.
bus system, so you have to extend it for everybody. So even if, and that was another piece from the DOE last year that was really
Who goes up first?
caused consternation, the high schools. So we said, for instance, we'll add an hour a day through certain dates, and that it would count for everybody. Because we're two-tiered busing, 6 through 12, and if you impact them, then you also impact, so it couldn't be just for seniors. But the response I got from the DOE was, it'll only count for seniors, it won't count for the other students, because for them, you can just tack on time at the end of the year. But they're doing that extra time now, but it doesn't count. So it would count for one group to make theirs, but not for the other. I don't have an answer to that one. It was a really problematic year last year, as you may recall, trying to figure out what the rules were and what you can do and can't do. And I noticed that this year, some other, like Bangor Brewer, and I think it was AOS 93 or something, just posted it on the calendar, on the news yesterday, what they were running for times and how they were meeting there. And I know they can't have had any communication to get approvals for that stuff now, so I think they've kind of thrown the gauntlet down. So we've already advertised it, and we'll apologize later.
Can you explain to me how the getting rid of the late start and the early dismissals allowed you to help grab hours, because
Yeah, because
it's
it's
already a
student
day
time,
of school?
but it's student time. So so the students would gain 2 more hours of academic time. The teachers would lose the PD time, the students gain.
But
So
not a day.
every time we do 3 of those, we pick up a total of 6 extra hours, so that counts.
I think his
as a day.
question is you add an hour to a day, you said no, a day is a day. We're just adding 2 hours to a day, how is that more than a day?
That was approved last year to do away with. We did that on some of our days last year, and we got approved for it. And I agree with you, it's confusing.
Only a little.
Yeah. So we'll continue to work through some ideas and see if we can get people on the same page with how to take care of this year's plan and also what I'm going to do about next year's calendar. We'll be out of the discussion altogether about seniors, though. I'm going to just imagine, because of the 14th is the graduation day. Now that I've said it, we'll have some Travis event go on out there in the communities for us, requiring his services.
Not sure how to take that.
A compliment, always take it well. All set for calendar?
Yes, thanks.
Moving on to the RSC, interlocal update and agreement.
So just a few short bullets to read. There's several of them, but they're short. The interlocal, as you recall, is about the regional school unit that involves RSU 21, 23, that's the soccer area, 57, 35 next door, the other side of us, 55 towards Cornish, Biddeford, Dayton, Portland, Saco, Sanford, and Yarmouth schools. So those are the people who are partaking in this. The term is through June of 2020. So it's 2 years, and it's governed by a board of directors that are made up of the superintendent of each school district or a designee to serve in that role, but I would serve on this. The functions of it are joint purchasing of food supplies, purchasing of facilities maintenance supplies, serving as an incubator for new regional programs and services, like things that we might consider doing as we move forward, engaging in such as other regional functions, programs, and services as may be authorized by law and approved by 2/3 of the full membership of the board. Administration of this, the regional center will be administered by RSU 21, Kennebunkport, and is Arundel part of that too? I think they're part of 21. So they're already the group that oversees the food service part of this for us, so we'd be picking up, they'd be picking up this other piece as well. The fiscal agent for that would, again, because it's through RSU 21, they would be the fiscal agent for it. The expenditures is an approval process for that, investment of funds, reserves, contingencies, there's all 2/3 majority votes for approvals. It also allows the RSU 21 to the Regional Service Center to use state subsidy for the RSC, the Regional Service Center, or to assess member municipalities their share of the RSC. One or two more things. There is a discussion in here about withdrawal, termination, dissolution, or transfer. I'll just put it this way: they're all difficult. They're lit on fire. Insurance. This is an example of that. The only way that you can withdraw from an RSC once you enter into it in the term, short of the term that it's set for, is if you can demonstrate that it will not increase the cost to the other unit. So so if we agreed to participate in that and we withdrew, how would it not increase the cost to other units? Maybe if you had a reciprocal agreement with someone who's involved in a different one, to swap seats with them. Insurances, it's the responsibility for obtaining. Each member is responsible for obtaining and maintaining insurance adequate to protect itself from risks any related to the agreement, which is typical. Nothing unusual there for us. So those are the ins and outs of this. So this is it's called the Southern Maine Regional Service Center, and this is the interlocal agreement. This has been handed to us through Drummond Woodson, so it's already been vetted by legal counsel. And you'll recall that you participated in approving step 1 of the application process. This is step 2 of the application process, and I would need to entertain any questions from people and then entertain, if you would consider a vote to agree to join the interlocal step 2.
Have you heard anything more about the penalties?
No, haven't heard anything about that. We're still planning on losing a certain number of dollars per student seat for participating in the interlocal. $43 per seat, $46 per seat, something like that.
So if we withdraw it and not do this, we don't lose any money?
Well, there was a legislative document for the legislators this year to say that groups that decided not to join the RSC should not be penalized. But I think that's an ought not to pass at this point in the legislature. So they'll see more significant losses. I think it might be like $113 for not choosing to join. So you minimize your penalty by joining.
So there's no way to not get a penalty?
Not at this time.
It's just totally illogical.
So
To punish
everybody's
us,
getting
penalize us for actually,
Everybody.
Yes.
yeah.
So the idea
Trying to save money,
should be,
play by their rules.
So the idea should be that you get, and you save money, then you don't need as much money for those services.
And I think we're going to save $46 per student.
No, I don't think they think
No, I'm
that.
not
I think
saying
that their view is that there's a finite amount of money in the state coffers for education, and of course, education being the most expensive driver of that, this is one of the ways to offset the state cost and allow the locals to pick up more of the share.
Haven't we already determined that we get pretty good deals from people on supplies and so forth?
We're already-
Simply because we're such a large district?
Yeah, we're already, we're in good shape as far as those things go.
Yeah.
We're unlikely to see much, if anything, in savings.
Right.
We are already a member of the food co-op. As a matter of fact, our food service director, Charlie Goodwin, is the executive director for the co-op through Kennybunk. He serves as the director. So we've been involved in that, and the custodial part would be new for us. We already had great rates because we have a large enough district to buy in bulk, and because we have a loading dock at the high school. That's an easy drop-off, one area drop-off, and then some of our other schools that we had smaller shipments to also have, like the Huzzy School has a loading dock. So.
But the bottom line is we have to participate to minimize that penalty.
So, yeah, okay, all right.
Right. So if we don't take the $46, it would be $119.
I think it's 113, I think, let's just, I've got a lot of numbers
I know
going
you
on,
do.
I think it's somewhere in that region. And
I
then
think we really have
close.
no choice but to go along with this agreement.
So the second year is a larger loss for districts that agree to these RSCs, and that's $91, an additional $91 per seat. So it's just shifting it, it's just a shift. It's saying that local taxpayers should pick up more of the cost than the state on.
It's clever.
You know, it's a lot
They
of
punish you
work.
for joining, punish you for not joining, so.
But it's a lot of extra work. It involves legal counsel. I mean, we're putting out a lot to follow their guidelines, and then we're still being penalized.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, so I think the view would be, if I was in Augusta, I think the view they're taking is that there isn't going to be enough money to fund this part. What can we offer to reduce the loss to each municipality? How about if we give them an incentive to join an RSC? But the incentive is really to minimize your loss.
Maybe they could think about just getting rid of the law. It wasn't such a good idea, and admit it.
But then they just take money away from something else. I mean, we're not going to get the money.
Well, they're hitting us with both ends. So they're taking us with this, and then they're raising the mill rate, which is another $500,000 or plus.
Yeah, and then we lose the other $216,000 because they owe us that money and won't pay it
For the
back on the new
CTE,
statutes.
I'll address that piece in the budgetary comment.
I don't know. It's-
So do we need a motion?
We do need a motion, as uncomfortable as I am with it.
We gotta minimize our losses.
Yep, so that's what it really is.
That's what we have to do.
So is there a motion to enter into this agreement?
I'll make the motion, I guess.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed?
Opposed to anything.
So
It's just a
I know
protest.
that the session isn't over yet, the legislative session, but I don't believe I don't recall seeing anything on the docket that will be to reverse this law. So I don't think it's not going to be under emergency legislation. I don't see this changing for this coming year.
It's extortion vote.
Yeah.
So since you voted no, I need your signature to
You're kidding me.
right here. Did I say that 16? District
Can I
chairperson.
write vice next to chairperson? Are you serious?
You have to accept that decision.
I'm doing, I guess, with grace and
Stand
aplomb.
by our decision.
That's right. No, well,
I just put my last name on purpose.
Great.
What was the total amount of money we lose now on this one? A hundred and something thousand, was it?
Yeah, 120.
About 216,000.
I think that at all.
145,000.
Denise, do you have a ballpark on that, or am I just grasping at straws?
I can look it up. And you're looking for the loss,
I think
That
it's
we
in
will
the
see.
154.
even though we're participating.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. All right. Give us a shout when you have something there.
All set?
Yes, sir.
Core values update.
So, a little bit more wordsmithing, part of the direction from the board was, whoops, did I get enough of those? I think so. Part of the directive of the board was to, as you recall, the vision and the mission statements were approved by the board in January, and the core values were the last piece. There's been a lot of wordsmithing for that part, and the directive was to go back to the administrative team and work with people there. Kind of the sense was, should the board be trying to wordsmith that piece, or can you bring us back something that you think is closer to what might work? So if you take a minute and read through these statements.
Would you like me to read them out loud so folks know what we're doing here? The core values on the board are relationships. We believe relationships are crucial and can be strengthened by clear communication between staff, students, and the community. Learning. We believe all students can learn and achieve to their highest potential with the support of staff and families. Accountability. We believe all members of our community are responsible for their learning, actions, and decisions. And respect. We believe respect is demonstrated through the actions of leadership, staff, and families, and is reflected in the student body.
Voice like that, you should do like football games or something.
Yeah, you think?
On the accountability one, who's the "there" referring to? Is it students or is it all members of the community?
All members of the community.
All members.
So the accountability is that all members of the community are responsible for their learning, action, and decisions.
Yes, all.
So that's including kids, parents, staff, everybody. Any comments? How do you feel about it? Thumbs up from Caitlin. She actually participated. Stan, what do you think?
I like it.
Becky?
I think it's everything we've talked about.
Yeah.
Joanne?
Yeah, I think
Think you're getting a theme.
the accountability and respect. Yeah.
How do you feel, Travis?
I'm good with it.
Yeah, it's much more concise than last time.
And that was one of the topics you folks had given us to say, narrow this down.
What do you think, Denise?
I like the core values a lot better than where they started. The mission statement, I like the content of it, but I'd still trip a little reading it. But there's something not quite right, but I can't quite put my finger on it. But I like the content of it. But I like the values.
She said it was adequate. Rebecca?
I think it's pretty good. Some parts I think are a little bit vague, but it's hard to come up with something everybody agrees on, so.
Do you have an example of what piece you might be looking at?
I under relationships, I think we talked about, we believe trusting relationships are crucial.
Other thoughts on that?
I think it kind of comes through with how it's written. So, Rebecca, you still coming up with an idea?
Well, I guess it's like, I think some of the earlier iterations of it were a little bit more punchy, like they were more like specific things, like in the learning section, there was something about learning from failure, learning from successes and failures.
Yeah.
So that's in the mission statement now.
Yep.
You good with it?
Well, under accountability, it's like, this is, I guess, assuming that everyone's, it's like, everybody is learning, even the teachers and the staff are also still learning. That comes through that.
Parents are too. Too, as your kids progress from level to level, you learn, you know, how do I work with my child on this? How do I help the school work with my child?
Even beyond that, what I think this also kind of alludes to is our excellent adult education program. All members of our community have an opportunity too to improve their learning.
And as far as teachers learning, there's a lot for teachers to learn. Every time a new initiative or a program comes on, there's professional development.
The sound training we did here at the high school, kindergarten jumpstart, at the elementary, at the primary grades, the work we have going on with the pilot read the math that's been doing a nice job for us at North Berwick Elementary. Very, very fun.
We still got a couple furrowed brows, but I think the majority of the board is, I think, Mike ready to make a motion, if anyone wants to approve the core values as written, and that would finish this long, year-long project of core values update.
I make a motion that we approve the core values as written.
We have a motion, Becky, is there a second?
Second that motion.
Second from Stan. Any further discussion on the core values? We
Yes,
have-
if we decided to tweak it grammatically in a minor way, does taking a vote on it tonight mean that can't happen?
No, you can revisit it. This is the district,
To be-
the district document.
And to be fair with that, on your hard-to-read mission statement, I did just kind of write him a note going, we empower all students to develop unenthusiasm, might read a little bit better than...
Oh, that's and?
What else does it look
I
like?
thought it was a sheep on a farm. I had no idea what that was.
And folks, this is my resignation.
Does that look like sheep? I don't know what that is.
Yeah, so exactly.
This is your school leadership team working for you. Thank you. Russell Rice, 2019.
I guess my point is I like the substance of it. If there were grammatical fixes, if taking a vote now means that we can't take a vote.
Nope, we're not putting it in stone tablets.
So we can't even go
I
back.
just don't want to change them. I like the way that we're changing them for minor stuff. I like the message that they're sending out, and I really don't see, I mean, if we come up with grammar, absolutely, but we do have a motion and a second to accept with the stipulation that we can grammarize it later.
Right.
Okay.
All those in favor of that?
There's a second?
Yes, you, yes. You went,
Stan was the second?
Okay.
Yep.
and that's Niall?
Okay, thank you, folks. So I'll be working with Lady Sue and some other folks on the strategies to go along with the strategic plan. That'll be the last piece of this. Denise provided me with information that shows that if the district decided not to participate in a regional service center, the loss would be just under $140,000. So it would be $139,356. And if the district agrees to participate, the loss will be $58,500 approximately.
So 60 grand?
Yeah, so there's an $80,000 not loss. I don't want to say savings.
Not gaining.
Can we just
Yeah,
lose $58,000 and cover the rest of it?
I think me and Stan are the same thing, where of course it's the right thing to do, but it just feels horrible to vote for it. DC trip, 2018.
Okay, so something about weather next week. And what day do you think that is? On the day that they leave. So they were supposed to originally leave at 5 p.m. on Tuesday evening. Nor'easter coming in Tuesday afternoon, early evening. Depends on who you listen to, but that's the update. I get my information from Precision Weather. Nice plug for them. Ross Murley does a great job. The trip is now going to leave, I think it's at 5 a.m. And so it's going to, they're adjusting the time with people so they're on the road and out of the area before this could possibly hit. And the second thing is it's about $33, $34 more per student because instead of traveling overnight, they'll need a hotel to stay in because they'll arrive. So
Those rooms are available?
just a quick, I guess so. Yeah. So that's March 20th through the 24th. Quick hits for you. They'll see the Jefferson Memorial, Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial, the National Zoo, the National Museum of African American History and Culture, Ford's Theater and the Peterson Home. They will have one meal at the Hard Rock Cafe. I got to send somebody with t-shirt money. Vietnam War Memorial, Lincoln Memorial, Korean War Memorial, Mount Vernon Estates and Gardens, having lunch with some guy named George. They'll go to the Supreme Court building, the Library of Congress, JFK Performing Arts, the White House. You don't go to the White House. I remember as a kid going to the White House. It takes when I was first in teaching to actually go in. Now you can say there it is from across the park. The Holocaust Memorial Museum, Arlington National Cemetery. I don't know if any of you have had the opportunity to either do the night tour of the monuments or go to Arlington. You will not forget that. And then they will have a dinner cruise on the Potomac.
Nice. So they're not going to the American Indian Museum?
I don't see that in here.
No. That's new.
I think they could spend a week just at the Smithsonian.
I know in years past, they've had some free time that some of the kids can choose to do something different.
Yeah, so when they hit the mall, they can, the Smithsonian Mall, not that other mall, they can usually.
They get left behind at the Natural History Museum, or what was that, Kate?
What?
What?
My group got left behind for like a half an hour, but it's okay.
Moving on, number 10, a donation from Kennebunk Savings Bank in the amount of $500.
Noble Middle School Building Pride Day, which is in June, received a donation from Kennebunk Savings Bank in the branch in Kennebunk in the form of a check in the amount of $500. That would be used for material purchases for Building Pride Day.
Is that what we have the threshold?
Because it's 500, yes, I would need the board to consider accepting that.
We have a motion to accept the donation?
All motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Nancy and Becky, all those in favor? That's a 9-0.
Great, thank you.
Then we should add the gratitude.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely wonderful.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Kennebunk Savings is probably the best bank I've ever worked with for donations to communities.
Yeah, we
Things there. They do so much.
We do a good amount of work with Kennebunk and with Quorum Savings, and we find that they're both very good community members.
Okay, number 11, budget discussion, sheet timeline.
Okay,
What's that?
so the first piece that I'm going to give you is fund balance usage, because a person by the name of, I believe it was Mr. Price, asked about the fund balance. And then there's a few extras for you right there, and these are punch for your notebooks.
Wow.
Where you place in your notebook, I'm not sure, maybe there is a category for fund balance. No, there is no category for fund balance. Okay, so this could go in the front pocket or in the back of your notebook. So what you see is that the fund balance as of June 30th, 2017, based on our audited financial statements, was slightly under $3 million. The non-spendable part of that, because we have to prepay expenses, there's some expenses we elect to prepay and some that we are required to prepay. The dental premiums, we prepay the expenses on that. Courses in the summer, usually if we pay for, whether it's a skillful teacher course or university courses and things like this that teachers are going to be taking, and administrators, if we pay prior to the summer, we get a discounted rate, so it pays for us to do that. So the total, and then the 2017, excuse me, 18 budgeted fund balance use was a little over $1 million. So the unassigned part was 1.8 million-ish. So 2018-19, the CIP projects, which those are in your binder in section 21, represent a little over 400,000, 404. And the general maintenance projects, which is section 20 in the binder, represents $205,500. Then there is other equipment, software, and supplies, things like the dump, plow truck, fuel pump for transportation, cafeteria tables at the middle school, theater risers for the high school. How many years has theater risers been on the list? And we're on borrowed time with those. Technology equipment, scissor lift. The scissor lift is, if you go into the auditorium, well, you pretty much, here you can reach. But if you go into the auditorium and you look up and you think, why are those 7 to 9 lights just out? Why don't they turn those on as well? We can't reach them. We have nothing that can reach those things. So we need a scissor lift to allow us to do some work in the A gym and also in the auditorium. And plus we can use those outside on our lighting retrofits in the parking lot. Saxophone for the middle school, $4,000. So those total, the other equipment and software and supplies are almost $135,000. So that is a total for CIP general and other equipment is slightly under $750,000. Now here's the most troubling part of our budget for me actually this year is in 18-19 we're talking about using $568,700 of the fund balance, the anticipated fund balance, to reduce the burden to taxpayers. As you recall, the mill rate is going up $545,000. So what we're doing in essence is not passing the mill rate back to the municipalities, to the citizens, but we're covering that. The problem with it is it's not for one-time purchases like that dump plow body or the scissor lift or something. And when you use funds from the fund balance that's not for a one-time only, that means that you're creating a hole, because how are you going to cover that same amount in the next year of the budget, in the next year of the budget? So that is a very problematic number for us. Anticipated fund balance that we would carry after June 30th is about $500,000. That's 1.5%. We're allowed to carry up to 3%. So some of the things that we have that might come in after the board adopts a budget, one of the things that I would push and implore the board to be thinking about is, instead of using that to drive the percent down a little bit more, there's already a hole existing. Use it to offset that hole. So that's one piece of information for you. The second piece that I received, I think this was today. MEA Benefits Trust voted last night to set the highest rate for July 1st of 2018 at a 9% increase. You may recall it's been up to 13 or 13.5% before. The last time they set it at 9%, and we had a really low loss ratio like we do now, our change was 2.2%. We've dropped our estimate on the insurances down to a 4% increase. Prior to April 1st, I'm really quite hesitant to go any further than that to see what happens. And unfortunately, we don't get the information until April 1st. However, the 9% tops on that is good news. What we don't know is, how does our loss ratio of 0.74 compare to any other district that's out there? That's a key factor. One other thing to share with you is, well, let's see. Okay, I'll hand this out first. I'm sorry, I didn't hole punch this. This is actually an updated version of the budget decision sheet that we talked about last night in the Facilities and Finance Subcommittee. So what you see at the top of that is that the current superintendent budget is at a 6.39% increase. That is with a $568,700 hole in the fund balance. That 568 is on top of that 6.39. If a board member were to say, well, tell us what would get this down to 5% or below 6% or something, here are some examples. $260,000 removed from this would be a 5% increase instead of a 6.39. You recall, just for comparison's sake, this year's a 3.91, and that was a slightly higher number than we've had in the last 5 years. A decrease of $130,000 would bring it to about a 5.71, and a decrease of $80,000 would bring it to a 5.99% increase. We've talked about the mill rate loss, so in CTE, career and technical education, because the early childhood moved last year and culinary is going to move next year, although Sanford is talking with us and with people in the our culinary staff, all one of them, about potentially not moving the culinary over next year, but holding that off for another year because the entire facility at Sanford, I don't think can be ready by the opening day. So they're looking at what if a wing with whatever programs that contains were held off.
Steve, would that offset some of that loss that we're going to see?
About $86,000 if we maintained that program. The State Department, in my conversation with Suzanne Boatman, who is the Assistant Commissioner, the Deputy Commissioner at the State Department, just today we were talking, because I'm concerned about a $216,000 loss. The first 2 years that you start CTE programs, according to the formula, you don't get any reimbursement for that. It's completely on the taxpayer to fund those programs. MSAD 60 did that in 2001 and 2 when those programs were opened following that statute. Up until 3 weeks ago, we were under the formula plan to continue to receive our offset. You pay the first 2 years, and at the end, it's 2-year-old money. You receive your funds to cover your total costs of the program. And instead, there's new legislation that says that money is not done in a holdback, but is paid up front to the Career and Technical Center. So that means that the $216,000 that should come to us in 18-19 goes to SRTC, and then in 19-20, the $86,000 goes there as well. So that's a loss of $215,000 or something like that.
And there's nothing written that we have from back when we started that...
Yes, so I communicated with, in my conversations with Ms. Boatman today, I talked about, I understand that there...
like from back when...
Yeah, so it all follows statute. And the statute says it's subsidy, it's not reimbursement. So there's definitely clear language that it's not about reimbursing districts for what they contribute to it. And we had some rather lengthy, pleasant conversations about that. That doesn't work for us. That doesn't, when we say $216,000 is going to go somewhere else to cover a current cost, because my argument was this is money that the formula currently says, and we're grandfathered by that. Wouldn't we be grandfathered? And the answer is there's no clause to grandfather. The statute changes, the statute changes. I said, okay, so this isn't an issue right now except for 2 districts, MSAD 60 and Bucksburg. I don't understand why you don't, whatever you're gonna do with the SRTC and the other votes, I understand paying up front for programs is a better model. But that doesn't mean that you don't complete your obligation to the districts that are being harmed in this, especially since we're only talking 2 districts. It's not like there were 35 districts out there saying, what are we gonna do? So the answer was, well, I can't give money to both districts.
Can we get some and split it?
Well, it depends. If the money comes from, if the money were to come for the culinary, if that stayed, we would get some money. Other than that, if I was superintendent of your holidays in Sanford, I would be saying, how am I funding those programs if I don't have those funds?
But I thought they were gonna start getting them. Oh, they didn't get it from us.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. Yeah. So they would take back their second satellite because the early, so we're receiving the money for the early childhood this year. That is our, I don't care what you want to call it, reimbursement, our holdover money. We are receiving that. It's 125, 126, let's say. And we should have received it next year as well. But we're not because of the change in statute that just happens to land in the spring of 2018. If this was spring of 19, we would have received that $216,000 for next year. So that's a difficult conversation to have. Title II, that's federal dollars, it's $100,000. What's today? We get news that says we're not going to get it, we get news that says we are going to get it. Right now we're on the are going to get it, and we just keep our cross and hope we don't have an additional $100,000 hole. Concerns, so I highlighted some in this particular list. So most of this decision sheet you've already got, but I've added some things later on in discussion with facilities and finance and with administrative groups. The contingency is, you can see, has gone from $180,000 in 2016 to $135,000 in 18 and $85,000 in 2019. That's a $40 million budget that has an $85,000 contingency plan. A single out-of-district placement in special education can be over $100,000. A single boiler, one of the 2 Huzzy boilers are $120,000 that we know is going to be on our list. So $85,000 is yet another example of a potential hole. A very tough fund balance. I'm very concerned about in the CIP about the resurfacing of the NHS parking lots. This is $1 million to repave all of this, and 16 years worth of. This place is a third. It's as busy as Pratt Whitney is. I mean, we have more people on a given day here coming and going than Pratt does. That's kind of tough to beat. $25,000 to resurface and to help extend the life of it. That's pretty cheap dollars on $1 million. I'm concerned about Milton's. Well, we've got several parking lots that we need to work on. These keep getting pushed off. Elks, Milton, is $75,000. I'm not sure how long we can continue to try to push that off. The portable at Hanson would be about $52,000 on the lease purchase. That's not included. The phase 3 at the middle school is not included. Through the main bond bank, we're estimating that if this is a 20-year bond, that would be about $43,000 per year. There's only 2 phases, like every 6 months, that you can get in for a bond that you can apply for this. So we have to be well planned ahead of time to be able to enact that anyways. But I'm just concerned that we're putting off some of those phases that we've done a lot of work to expand the life of that building another 2 to 3 decades. And I don't want to stall on that work. The bus cycles, we talked about that. The large bus is $82,000. We really need a 4 and 2 for the next 5 years, 4 large, 2 small. But we could make ends with 1 large and 3 small for this next year. You might say, wait a minute, why did your small buses just go up? Remember, we had one that was totaled out this year? And even though we got the insurance money for it, we can't spend it because that'll put our expenditures up towards the limit that the taxpayers approved. And we can't overspend that even if we have the revenue to offset it. That's a plan. I don't know about you, but that's how I do my household. So here are some considerations that got a lot of conversation with the, look over onto the back of the page and see considerations for Wednesday, March 14th, Facilities and Finance Committee. These 5 items, there is no 6, total $115,000. And what we looked at is the legal costs, dropping those from $95,000 for next year to $70,000. So at this point, according to legislators, local legislators, there's no option for legislative action to push through anything to do with town discussions about who is paying what the contributions are based on valuation of pupils. So we're anticipating that even if those conversations kick in again next year, that it'll be in the second half of the year that any lawyer legal costs would come to us. So we think that we're safe by dropping that by $25,000. The total money we put into that was $50,000 for the towns to work out any agreements. All the tiling projects that we have, we're removing carpet and replacing it with tiles. That's $35,000. It's not reflected here. It says 0 savings. And that's because that $35,000 can go back onto that $568,700. I mean, it's a small drop in the bucket compared to the big number, but any amount creates a less of a hole the year after. Instructional supplies, books, and students. I know you saw large changes, decreases in their numbers already, but I just remind you that the biggest change was because we did all the FOSS science kits in 1 year. And so this year we were able to remove that cost. We also gave each school a per student cost this year to try to equalize amounts that schools have. And what we would do is reduce that by $15,000 across the district, so no one takes a significant hit. It would be an equal hit for everyone. And the administrators that we had in for a representative body were supportive of that. Honestly, they'll be supportive of a lot of stuff. They'll say, we'll figure it out, make it how to work. We'll make it work. Number 4 is class size. So in really thumbing through things and going over numbers with Mike and Michelle at North Berwick Elementary School, the numbers, if there's a certain number of 4th grades and 5th grades this year, if there was one reduction of some combination of that, then we could recoup $70,000 in a teaching position there. And what we're looking at right now, I know we're in March, we're not in August, but what we're looking at right now is that the numbers for North Berwick's 4th and 5th grade classes would be the same as the numbers in the other 2 towns. So we're not we're not causing any significant change that is going to unlevel the playing field. And the last thing is Tri-Town bookmobile money. We have $20,000 that we put in to really create that collection. And if we remove $5,000 of that, what we're thinking is we could talk to each of the book fair groups in the schools, each of the PTOs, and ask if they would consider taking any of the funds that are recouped from that and the book donations that happen. Parents come in and they say, I'd like to donate a book. We're going to ask people to donate to the Tri-Town bookmobile for the next school year. So we think we can bridge that to make sure that the Tri-Town bookmobile has a really good collection that's going to draw people to the vehicle. So that's $115,000 worth of changes, and that would drive that 6.39 down to 5.8. So let me give you an example. Well, I mentioned the committee, so Sam, Joanne, and Travis working on the Facilities and Finance Committee. We talked several times about the change in special education for next year, and the change in the mill rate, and the change in the loss of the CTE, and so forth. There are numbers, particularly in special education, I think it's 540,000 alone just in staffing costs. Over $500,000 increase in staffing because of specialized need that's coming into our school, that we want to meet those needs, and of course we have to meet those needs. We're not alone in this. I was talking with 2 other superintendents at a recent meeting. They're from Cumberland County. Superintendent in Gorham has an increase going forward of over 7%, and each of the last, and over a 6-year time span, this will be the 3rd time that she has added in an extra autistic spectrum disorder program, specialized program. She did that 4 years ago, 2 years ago, and she'll be doing it next year as well. And then Javier Botana in Portland is putting forward a 7% something increase on a $100 million budget. So that's a significant, that's $7 million change. And in talking with others, they're seeing the same thing. We talked a little bit about it. We're seeing a really good clarity of what's going on right now in society, that there are significant changes impacting the public and they're impacting the schools too. We have to account for those. So if the percent was in the 5.8 area, then just to give you an example, this is don't quote me on this, this is an approximate. A taxpayer on a $200,000 home in Berwick would see about a $255 increase next year.
And that was at which?
Berwick,
No, but that was at the
if it's a 5.8.
5.8. Okay. And I'm sorry, what was the amount?
$255 on a $200,000 home. And then in Lebanon, it would be just over $172. And in North Berwick, it would be $188 and some odd cents. So I guess I would turn to Sam, Joanne, and Travis to have some chat time with your peers from the facility work, finance work, excuse me.
It's really difficult because the money issues aren't anything that we caused. It's what's been handed to us. And I'm really concerned about the condition of some of our buildings, and this doesn't give us a whole lot, this doesn't give us any room to do any major improvements that we have to do on a number of the different buildings in the different towns. The state has taken away this money from us to alleviate some of what they're charging the towns, but it's still, the towns are going to end up paying it anyway, because someone's got to help come up with the funds. I can't see it being anything below 5.8. And to be honest with you, as much as I hate these words to come out of my mouth, the 6.39 increase of what you originally presented to me seems a more realistic number to keep our buildings in good shape. Like with the paving, for example, when you don't put money into paving of the parking lots, it's going to cost us more money to rebuild the parking lots. You know, and ounce prevention is going to save. So I don't know what you guys think, but I'm just really, really concerned about not putting some of these some of the money back into the CIP. But I know we really can't, but
Well,
I
it's
just have to
25
support the larger, I have to support the larger increase.
which,
Well, 5.8 is is the lowest. I think the increase should be, I can't believe I'm saying it. It's really so against me to do
The
this.
fact of the matter is that we're not increasing 6.39% of actual money to the kids. We're trying to recoup a significant funding loss.
And with the special ed budget for next year, it blew my mind to think $500,000 just for new staff to cover the children that are coming into our district.
what if it's a trend?
That's what's.
Well, yeah, this is only the beginning. You know.
CPS, the reported to you earlier was Child Development Services was 18 students a couple of years ago, 22, a year ago, 22 students this year, and it's 37 or 38 students this year.
They're coming in, and it's not just 1 year. These kids are going to be here for at least 12 years.
Well, whatever we're paying for next year for them to come in kindergarten is gonna have to be ahead.
Absolutely, yeah.
And we're gonna get more.
Every year.
Hopefully it's not 38, but.
And we also have money in the budget that's part of the behavioral programming in the regular education too, because some students aren't qualifying for special education, and yet the behaviors are so disruptive that the regular education setting isn't working.
I know it's just a drop in the bucket, but if you don't mind me pinching a penny, $15,000 for a scissor lift to fix 8 light bulbs seems a little iffy to me when we can do a day rental for $300.
Denise, where have you heard this before?
But that'd be 15 grand you can put right back into your hole. You know, you plan ahead, you buy your light bulbs, rent your scissor lift for your 6-hour rental, get some light bulbs done. And I think you would say, I mean, like I said, it's 15 grand, it's a drop in the bucket, but that would be a tough sell, Billy. We spent $15,000 to replace a dim part of the theater. It's not like it's a safety issue at the moment.
I'm getting a little, providing that example is not the only thing, but I'm following your conversation.
Well,
I agree.
let's say you had 4 projects at $300 at a rent. You're still significantly under $1,500. I mean, $15,000. It's just an idea.
Well, I'm not going to argue that.
No, that's good.
I would agree with Dustin on that one, that 15,000 should be removed from the capital improvement.
You are going to do it.
Yeah, I agree with Dustin on that one. I don't think we need to spend the 15,000 on the work for the Michael's now.
This was $4,000 for a saxophone.
I'm sorry?
$4,000 for a saxophone.
Yeah, we actually have kids playing instruments now, but we have kids that we can't provide instruments to. We don't have a saxophone that Allison Chipman can continue to keep working.
$4,000 for one saxophone?
One.
Yeah.
They have to get their own instruments?
Yeah.
There are students that we have in both the high school and the middle school, we have a supply of instruments because frequently there are students who cannot afford that and they're under free and appropriate public education.
Would it be cheaper for the school just to enter into a rental contract and rent the saxophone for the kids?
I don't know that.
What's that?
There must be saxophones that cost less than that.
Well, it depends on what kind of a saxophone it is. If it's a Barry sax, no. That's the big honking one, yeah. No.
Well,
I don't know what kind of sax it is.
I've seen the plastic ones out there in the band room
That's
right
what, well,
now.
that's what the high school is using.
And those can't be $4,000. I've seen them at the,
No, I think the
Nope.
reason they get them is
I think.
because they're less expensive and serve the purpose of,
Yeah, they're learning the music. They're not gonna, I guess, cut a record on it, but at this time, I don't know if it's, when we're so up against it. Lord knows I wanted my marching band. I don't know about spending $4 grand on a saxophone either. It seems exuberant. Scares me though, if we're gonna have marching band, if saxophones are all $4,000, how much that marching band would have been.
Wait till you start playing drums. Or marching.
So there's two things that people are talking about here. One is doing a rental on the saxophone, and the other one is removing the scissor lift from that and doing a rental as needed.
Yeah, you guys have a trailer.
So it's going there.
Yeah, we have a trailer that can bring on scissor lift.
Put them on that. Oh, yeah.
They'll deliver it.
Yeah,
I
I'd
don't
be,
want to, I could bring it in.
yeah.
Not the scissors,
Just
but the
get
trailer.
the fire guy and his ladder.
Not wrong town. I brought the fire trucks to Borough Town, so I can't bring them up for.
Oh.
Get a fire truck.
Or into the out area too.
Yeah, it would be very hard to get
Yeah.
into there.
What's 26,000 in technology equipment? It's above scissor lift. It just says tech equipment, 26,000.
Yeah, why don't I just do that piece of paper? Specifics on that. Denise, do you have the breakdown on what the particular equipment might be?
Look it up, it's the net amount after the E-rate was applied, but I forget exactly.
Okay. So we have E-rate that offsets some of that?
Only question I ask is I do believe some wonderful students just won the school 75 grand worth of technology.
Yes, we did.
Do we get to decide what we need?
Probably not, but I
Auction
wouldn't,
open Christmas, be like, we get.
but I wouldn't doubt it being Samsung, you're looking at a ton of Chromebooks.
Yeah, they
Something like that.
they send you their package. It's a nice little care package too.
I don't know when it's coming, but you might open it up and go, hey, we don't need to spend 26,000 on equipment anymore, on technology anymore.
I'm thinking that this is not that kind of stuff. I'm thinking Chris is talking switches and some other stuff.
Was
but
it-
Denise will double check. I'm just going off memory, so I'd rather Denise look it up. What was the other one? So there was technology, questions, the scissor lift and the saxophone.
Yeah.
Big rises have to say, because that's definite.
Those are safety issues.
Safety.
Yeah, safety, you can't, that's for safety.
Same with the cafeteria tables at North Berwick.
Well, but if it's a different type of technology that it's needed, it's needed. It's-
She'll get us,
You want to explain the
That's what my next
Yeah,
question.
so right now, the shop truck that we have, the plow truck that we're using over to the garage, will not take a sticker, and the body of it is rotted out. We're gonna have to sell it for scrap, we're not gonna get money for it as far as a running vehicle goes.
You can buy one of those for 46,000.
That was my question.
Yes,
That's
so-
what
That's a deal.
75.
So,
Well, depends how big.
Tim Doobie, I will never buy a car or anything from Tim, oh, he's trying to sell me his melody, whatever. Tim Doobie, the shop foreman, has been working with a dealership that put quite a price on the table for us and would like to earn more of our business. And so we've inquired a couple of times, so this means it's gonna have this, and it's gonna have this, it's, yeah. Okay,
Doesn't have
we'll hold you to it.
a plow and a dump body.
So,
Is it,
rather not going to the, like a Ford 550, is it that big, or?
I think it might be a 350. I don't think
Yeah.
it's a
With
550.
a dump?
Oh, well, actually, I'm gonna take that back. I think it's a 3500. It's not in the Ford range, not from Tim. You cannot do that.
Well, with a dump, that's why I can't.
So I think that, so not like a full dump body. This is one that's got the,
Landscape.
that's got, it's got a flatbed on it, and then sitting inside that is this yellow and black sand.
So it's got a sand scrubber.
Get a sander in it.
Yeah,
But so it's not, that doesn't have a dump body? Like if the sander comes out, that doesn't have like a landscape back?
yeah, it does. It's got racks, I think, you can put on it, or low solid.
You don't know what that is.
No, it isn't.
I don't know all. I
So
don't
let's
know
not embarrass him any longer.
Sounds good. Okay.
So that doesn't pertain to the other item that we discussed last night about the parking lot and plowing.
Well, So that is one of the vehicles that's used, but it doesn't cover, it won't be a vehicle that will be going to North Berwick probably. So the piece that he's referring to is that North Berwick in the past, including this year, has done the plowing for North Berwick Elementary. But next year that will cease. So we need to pick up the plowing for that, and we'll do that through a contract. That'll be a contract, so we won't own the equipment.
And the contract's already done.
We've already done the bids.
So is North Berwick still able to take advantage of the opportunity with us on the gasoline?
Yeah, so for police cars, for instance, it's 50 cents a gallon cheaper at the pumps. And then we also have an agreement on the car wash. We have a bus wash statement there, a wash bay, and so they use that as well.
I guess I'm not happy with it. I'll have to discuss that, I think, with the selectmen, but
Do you know any?
I'm not real happy about the fact that North Berwick is discontinuing that plowing. And we're still gonna give them the break on the gasoline.
I would imagine 50 cents a gallon comes to an awful lot of gas.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And then we clean up the police cars. It's getting real tough here now, because I agree with Joanne. I mean, a tour of some of these buildings that we experienced and out to Lebanon, we need a new school building out there,
Lebanon
sooner than later, because that wood frame building is not going to last.
Yeah.
And I would invite any member of the board and anybody in the community to tour that building and go downstairs in the boiler room and stand in the standing water and have the ceiling, material fall down on you. It's incredible. That was put up in what, 1953?
1950.
Yeah, 53, 54.
Right up against it. Special ed costs are going to keep going up.
Yeah, I think we just spent I think it was 7,000, I don't think it was 17, just to do the basement in there, to have a pad put down, remove the concrete and rebar sections that were compromised, and to put new columns in and support that.
Sure.
So it's still shifting, it's still a floating building, and it comes and goes 6 inches.
6 inches, that's huge.
I mean, we can put off all these capital projects. At some point, I think, sooner than later, you said it last night, we're going to have some kind of communication with the 3 towns, starting with the newspapers. And I think we need to begin to educate people and prepare them for the budget meeting this year. I mean, the state has shifted revenue sharing funds away from the towns. We're already experiencing that. They're nowhere near funding education where people have wanted it. We're nowhere near the 55%. We're falling back with all their little gimmicks and tricks. But they're in a tough position too. They've raised the hotel and restaurant tax already. They can't go up too many more pennies on the, it was an eye-opener for me to see a couple of the buildings and the capital improvements, especially out in Lebanon.
And the piece of the middle school, the wing that we went to out there,
Oh, yeah.
the difference from the new reconstruction to the
Right. It's too bad because everybody sees this district and they see Noble High School. It's a beautiful building. And I give our staff and our kids a lot of credit for maintaining it. It looks like it was built last year instead of,
And folks don't realize that this is coming to the point where it needs,
we
can say, okay, it was built in '01, so it's a 17-year-old building. That's not new anymore. As we experienced a situation where on the gym wall that we took off we had some leaking going on there. We took off the exterior and found that there was no flashing and no vapor water barrier underneath that. And we have no idea how much more. We found no flashing on some other windows. I'm turned around on some other windows over this way. And so we're just going to start taking piece for piece and looking to see if those things are there. Because if they're not, we've got to do that work. And so we're just putting in a placeholder of 30 grand a year to begin doing the outside envelope, moving from section to section around this high school.
There's a few other places too, though, like in North Berwick at the elementary school. They're really cramped in the area, in the lunch area. And that's an area that it would be great if we could put a little expansion on that space so it would be easier for them to schedule all the lunches and have enough room for the kids. Because they also use that phys ed too.
Band room.
And a band room. So, I mean, it's a multi-purpose room and they really don't have enough space. And another area that we need to have on our radar is Berwick because of the number of projects that are going in, meaning housing that's going in there. We're going to be really tight for space in Berwick too. So we've got some...
Can I share what that piece looks like?
Yeah,
So here's, so I was in touch with, got some really good help from James Belizimo, who is the Berwick Planning Department, and then also from Jen Griffin over in Lebanon. So I get some good help from people to keep on top of these things. Major subdivision, this is for Berwick, major subdivision in sketch plan, so the details could change. They're seeking to build 2 8-unit buildings with 2 bedrooms each at 115 Old Pine Hill Road. Also in the sketch is a 16-lot subdivision, also off Old Pine Hill Road. It says Norman Court. There hasn't been much activity to report on that lately. And then a note on the 90-unit Blackberry Hill development right across the street from the school. It's likely they'll need a new DEP permit, which will change the plan, and they'll have to come back before the planning board. That was initially approved 10 years ago, and it sounds as though that might be on hold for a while as they will effectively have to start from the beginning. So it looks like 16-lot subdivision, 2 bedrooms each. So how many, calculate how many students you pick up from that, and then also the 2 8-unit buildings with 2 bedrooms each in that as well. So that's in Berwick, and we've got to talk just briefly about the Huzzy piece because we've got to have on the radar to do expansion at Huzzy. In Lebanon, it's 6 permits were issued in 2017 for a 9-lot subdivision to be sold as single-family lots, and 2 permits were issued in 2017 for a 10-lot subdivision, single-family dwellings on Poplar Hill Road. Eastwood Condominium Project located on 202. This has 2 buildings. One building has 4 units, the other contains 6 units. Each unit to be sold as single-family dwellings. The permits for both of these buildings were issued this year in 2018. Wiswell Estates is a 6-lot subdivision on both Merchants Row and Jim Grant, and it was approved in 2012. 2 permits were issued in 17. Maple Estates is a 10-lot subdivision off Merchants Row with an interior street being Spring Hill and Birch. This was approved in 2010. There were 2 permits issued in 2017 for lots that abut the subdivision. Moose Crossing is a 10-lot subdivision off West Lebanon Road, and with
No growth plans in either town.
Moose Lane. The subdivision was approved in 07. There was 1 permit issued in 2018. The following permits were also issued by code enforcement through 2017. 11 mobile homes, 2 modulars, 23 homes, 1 duplex.
Well, Lebanon's got a lot of land,
Yeah,
you know.
That's what they have?
but you gotta
They got
start
land?
planning that growth.
Well, and we're tight on space at the elementary
The
school.
school, yeah.
We're real tight on space, so.
Yeah, and in Berwick, the problem that we have is that we don't have enough room to move an entire grade, like an entire 3rd grade to Knowlton. And that would just be almost like an unconscionable thing to talk with families about, that you could have some 3rd grades at Huzzy and some 3rd grades at Knowlton. That would be a real rift creator right there.
Why do you think that would be a rift creator?
I mean, we're in different towns and different schools. schools?
Say that again?
I'm just curious why, I mean, obviously it's not ideal, but
Yeah, it's not, so people worry about, and I've been through this experience in Portland schools when we changed configuration gradings and so forth. And the problems that came up were people thought, my child needs to stay, I'll just be honest, my child needs to stay young. I want my child in this K-2 piece, you can't move my child up here. Some others that were saying, well, my child has this certain capability academically, it needs to have more challenge. Is it whatever classroom they're in isn't going to reach that challenge based on where you, so it's kind of a little bit of irrational.
You did that with, moving the fifth graders into the home school, and then the fourth graders into, I mean, it's we sort of, and the eighth graders into the high school, like
But we never
nobody
split
thinks
a
it's
grade.
ideal, what?
We never split a
I
grade.
know, but if the point is that, I mean, and I get it, like, people not wanting to have their kids in
Yeah.
older school,
Mhm.
but we've had to
The
make
eighth
that
grade
choice
is-
several times, and it's
Yeah.
obviously turned out fine,
Yeah.
but,
Right, and
I mean,
I think you would be okay if you would move the whole grade.
yeah,
I
absolutely.
think the issue becomes
I think the issue
half
is that
grade.
people want their kids to stay with their friends more than
That's
any
gonna
of
be
the other
another-
issues.
that's gonna be-
We also got the idea of my third grader is the oldest kid in the school and not likely to be bullied, or mom, I got unlucky and my kid's the youngest kid in the school. You know,
Which is
for
gonna
the
happen
same
next year
grade.
anyway.
Well, yeah, but I can see them being, dang, the whole lot, like, why did my kid have
I
to step in
guess
fifth
my point is
grade?
that I feel like it's definitely not ideal, but
Yeah.
it's something that should be, at least we should look at whether or not it's an
Yeah, because
option.
that's a stopgap measure anyways.
Right.
That's not the solution.
Gosh, no, of course not.
So behind Huzzy, where there's kind of a pie shape in there, there's the statue of the little girl reading the book. If that area were bridged with a one-level structure, it would create an indoor courtyard, an indoor-outdoor courtyard inside and provide classroom space there. Because another one of the issues that we have is that some of the high-need programming that we need to put in is at Huzzy. It's where the population is. So that's where we're having concerns about, you can't just build it and say, well, let's add an Alice Nest in Lebanon and then let's move a program there, because those kids would be on buses for an extra half an hour coming and going one way.
Can we
That's
move,
not where they are.
can we move some of those high needs up to this available space that we have at Milton?
Yeah, we've talked a little bit about that. So in special education regulation is a thing called, is a thing that refers to access to regular peers. So the regular peers, it might be during a snack time, it might be during lunch times, it could be a playground, it could be during certain parts of the school day that has classroom activity going on. And so they have to have access to their regular peers. And that's considered not to be, if you have a situation where you can provide it and you choose to do something different, that's where you're going to face legal challenges.
So of these buildings, how many of them can be added on to if we needed to?
So North Berwick, for instance, had in its original plan that the wing that goes out back, that's one floor, the original plan says that it can be, and it's already pre-approved, that you could have a second floor built on that, and it can extend out further into the north 40 acres out there. It's a huge area. And so you could have a new second floor and a first and second floor. And if that kind of thing were to happen, it's not that, see, some people might say, well, Herd Academy shouldn't have been created because you lost that space. We're talking about an art room, we're talking about, excuse me, not an art room, we're talking about a library, we're talking about a band room, we're talking about a cafeteria space, we're talking about a bigger library. There was no bigger space for a library. It didn't exist before the school shifted or not. The main office is, Mike and Michelle share an office that is smaller than the space inside this opening right here. This is much larger than what they share. The nurse's office is inadequate, the conference space is no bigger than that space, and the main office that the secretary works out of and that everyone checks in and out of is no bigger than this space either. So inadequate space is inadequate space, whether or not Mary Hurd Academy exists or whether you have K to 3 here and 4 to 5 there. So, and they're serving 4 lunches and they have the band room using the cafeteria, so they're really locked in to a schedule driven by those 2 things that impacts most of the school.
Yeah, Lebanon has that problem too. Their schedule is driven by the cafeteria.
Yep.
Any other budget questions at this time?
So are there any other buildings, Berwick?
Hussey could be,
Yeah, plus you have a pie
yeah.
Okay.
filled in.
So Denise shared information with Jen, who handed me her phone and thinks I can read this size phone. But anyways, I know it's good size. Not anymore. It's $26,125 is for 30% of the cost of network switches and access points. 70% is covered by E-rate.
So I'm guessing with network switches and access points, we're talking about the issue with the teachers being able to access their terminals that we thought was kids on phones, but wasn't.
Yeah, well, that's not helping it, but that is part of the problem.
Okay.
So it's not like we just need to replace the LCDs or we need to upgrade Chromebooks or something like that. It's
No,
larger,
going full network.
yeah, it's larger technology infrastructure.
So do we need to like propose some cuts so far out of this considerations or
So there's
CID or stuff like that?
There's a bunch of different ways that the board could go about things. The board could send me back with a lot of different homework, like what do you want to see happen. There's $19,000 here, take away some rental fees, so let's call it $16,000. That can be taken out. The question is where the board would like to see that taken out. There's potential to use the 16 to drive further down from a 5.8, and there's the potential to apply it to that 5,
To the whole.
the 568 whole, which is actually not 568 if the other 15,000 comes from that. It is, was it 15,000? I'm sorry?
I say, well, I guess you can't say, it was 15,000 for the scissor lift, but then you gotta add.
Not for the scissor lift. On our other list, what was the thing that we were talking about?
Saxophone.
Not on that particular list. There was something else. Thank you.
For student costs.
It's 35,000 to drop the tiling project. So if we took the 568, so that would be 533,700 without that $35,000 in there. So the 16,000 could come off that, or it could come off the percent. That's something that the board needs to weigh in on.
At the end of the day, you're still saving, because next year, that's a hole.
Yeah.
And who knows what we're getting in for special ed or for state cuts again next year. So no matter where you put that 16 grand, is we're saving taxpayers money. I'd rather put it in the hole,
I would too.
I would.
rather than just a tick off a percentage increase.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the year, they'll be happy, like, hey, you brought it down to 5.8 versus, but next year, yeah, we're at 6.4 because we have this hole and we gotta try to figure that one out too.
And we still have these projects.
I have a question on the considerations. It says 4% medical, reduced to 3% question mark. Isn't that sort of irrelevant because it's going to come in at whatever it comes in at?
So it comes in, so let's say it comes in a percent down. Well, that's probably close to $50,000. So if we could say now we have really good surety that that's going to come in at 2%, we could knock $100,000 off of either that fund balance hole or off the percent.
But if it comes in higher, then we have to eat that cost somewhere.
Exactly.
Right, so
So that's why
are we
we're
better to
saying,
just keep it?
so that's why we took it from 5 to 4 once we got our loss ratio in. I think that was 0.74,
And we won't know this until?
April 1st.
Oh, okay.
which you,
And your decisions are,
June, March 29.
your decision to put 3 on the considerations is because the last time we hit this particular loss ratio, and the last time they had this maximum amount, you guys got hit for it too.
And just today, we found out that maximum amount was going to be 9%.
So,
So that's that part of that new information coming in. There'll be some pluses and some minuses in new information. Hopefully this one's a minus.
I'm hoping you come in at 2%, you got an extra 100 grand to put in the hole, but I wouldn't bet on 2% at the moment.
No, not for that.
I think 3 is conservative optimism.
And this 50 is 3 or 4%?
That's going from 4 to 3, it looks like.
We went from 5 to 4. Yeah, and the consideration was, should we, does the board say, look, we want you to live on the edge here, go from 4 to 3?
No, but so the 50,000 represents 4%.
Oh, yes, that represents the percent change. 1% is about 50,000.
Okay.
So to go from 4 to 3 would reduce that.
So the current
So this 50,000 was the
superintendent's
reduction from 5 to 4?
Yes,
Okay.
What? No?
yes, and if you went from 4 to 3, it would
It'd
be
be
another
another
50,000.
Okay.
Well, that's why it says the question is, do we want to go down to a 3, you'll get 50
Remember,
grand.
the 50 grand was from 5 to 4.
Yes.
So we've already put that in.
We've already
But
done
not
that.
this 50 grand sitting
Right.
there.
Correct. So we
can't both be right, Steve.
Yeah, that's
Under considerations, does this represent going from 4 to 3 or from 5 to 4?
Nothing.
We've already done, forget 5 to 4. We've already gone
So I'm taking
from
the
5
question
to
mark off,
4.
'cause it's
We've already
already
done $50,000. The next consideration
Yeah, question
was,
mark's still right.
if you went from 4 to 3, there would be another $50,000.
So your superintendent's budget right now went from 5 to 4.
Correct.
This question is saying, if you're feeling brave enough to say, we might get a 3, we can take $50,000 off whatever we want to take it off of.
Okay. And then, so along that same line, the current budget includes the number 2, the buses, it includes the floating nurse, it includes all these.
Yeah, those are things that
But they're
we
in-
put out
they're in
there
the
to
budget.
say, they're current, those things that you're looking at the bottom of that sheet, thank you for that clarification, items 1 through 9 are currently in the superintendent's
Okay.
budget.
So for
So
consideration
there are
for
things
that.
for you folks to think about. For instance, if we're saying 1 and 3 on the buses, you could say you don't get buses this year.
No.
No, just as an example. Just as an example. You could say you're not going to get buses this year, or you get the 3 mini buses because we know with our special education numbers going up, we're going to need more transportation, and we're strapped for transportation right now.
Then we'll
in
need
our
5
mini
buses next year.
Yeah,
It's all a hole.
Can't do that.
Yeah, it's always a
but
hole.
those are decisions that people have to think about.
Ask you a question.
Surely.
Number 9, reduce municipal legal expenses from 50,000. But number 1 on the next consideration was reduce legal from 95 to 70.
Yes, so we took 25,000 out of there,
Yes,
right?
you did.
That's in number 1 on the March 14th. You could knock it to 0 and say, we're not going to have this problem next year.
Can you explain what you just said?
Yeah, explain that.
Yeah, you see on number 1 at the bottom where it says
Yeah.
March 14th?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It says
Went from
pull
95 to 70.
$25,000 out of the legal fund. So the legal fund altogether is $95,000. And we said, well, based on what we currently know about the legislation and when things could or could not be enacted, it doesn't sound like anything could happen if people decided to until about this time next year.
Yeah.
So that gives us a shorter time frame to have to pay legal costs in the 2018-19 budget. So instead of having 50,000 of that whole 95,000 planned for legal costs to confront this situation,
Oh, okay.
we would say, let's just make it 25,000.
So you're saying that 95 to 70 is total legal cost for everything the school might incur?
Exactly, yeah.
And your number 9 here for municipal legal expenses is if we have to cover the North Berwick, Berwick, Lebanon.
Yeah.
Discussion, yeah, yeah.
The discussion that's happening right now.
Yeah,
You're banking on that legislation isn't going to get pushed through, so we can reduce the $50,000 guess of what we might have to pay for these 3 towns to do their talk to $25,000.
yeah, we just did that.
We already did that.
And what we're saying is, it's 50,000, We've taken 25 out, so you might as well just change this number right here to 25, if that clarifies that. Where it says 50,000, just cross it out and put 25.
Gotcha.
And it would be saying, we're not gonna put any money into that, and we'll have to catch it and
Can you
continue.
explain
Now, right-
then how those towns can use legal fees that we have to pay for without our approval?
Yeah, so there are, in the legislation, there are pieces that are up to the municipality that they're interested in pursuing certain questions, not just about funding formulas and so forth. And then there are other sections that say, once this is, once some of these processes take place, those districts are dealing with, those municipalities are dealing with how the district is going to operate. And so at that point, there's a point you cross over that the legislation says the district assumes that cost for those pieces. So let's say, for instance,
With no oversight?
well, not with no oversight. I mean, you're at the table in the discussions about the, like if there was a 9-member panel, it would probably be a representative of each of the 3 towns from the school board, representative of the municipalities, and someone else elected to serve as that 3rd person for each town. So you have some say over the process, and then in other ways, you really don't.
Yeah, we don't, over the process, but no real say over who's paying for it.
No, so who's paying?
Right, I mean,
School
like I said, it just seems, crazy that this is a process that the school board did not want to get into,
That's
does
right.
not support,
But
but
it's
still
towns.
has to pay the bill.
Yeah, but it makes sense to me because the towns are the ones that pay for the school.
So in a way, the towns are still paying for it.
Yeah, they're paying for it in one way or another.
Yeah,
Either it comes out of the municipal budget or it comes out of the school district budget. And if it's a reassessment of statutes and how things are done, then the view of it is it's about the school district. So at that point, it becomes a school district.
But right now, Berwick's paying their own legal fees for shenanigans, they're already responsible.
Or if North Berwick is looking at anything, or if Lebanon is, they're paying their own legal
Okay,
fees.
so they're
We don't
not-
assume
Until we have to all come together, then we pay.
So we're pretty sure that prior to this, not much before this time next year, that we wouldn't see any legal costs, depending where folks want to go.
Well,
Or not want to go.
we might have a better understanding of where this could or could not go.
Next week.
Come
Monday
the
night.
19th. So we might be able to take even more off after the 19th
Yeah.
meeting, depending on how that meeting goes. That's my take on it. Leave it at 25 for today, but come next one, we might want to go further.
And I'm not interested in going too much further on that, because next year, the only group that we have up for negotiations is teacher negotiations. So I'd rather leave that fund where it is.
Just do that last year.
2 years.
It always seems like it's just happened.
That's fine.
Oh, yeah.
We just did that last year.
Oh, yeah.
It had to be, I've only been here 2 years.
Yeah, so there's your
Yes,
2
it's
years.
the next.
I have a question about something different. So this whole section here on concerns, is any of this stuff in the budget anywhere?
The 85,000 is in the budget for the contingency. The concern is, look at the drop, it's almost, it's all.
Right, so all the
less than
stuff
half.
that's yellow is
Yeah.
in?
Yeah, we're banking on, no, we're banking on number 2, the 4 Mary Hurd Academy tuitions. We have 3 in place now. We're banking that 4 next year. That means-
Income for us, from other?
Yes, they're actually, the state doesn't consider it income. They say you can offset your costs, so what you call a word, whatever you, yeah. The fund balance, we're using 745,000, so that is in the budget, and then we're applying 533, whatever it said there, 533.7. And then in the CIP, we're not we don't have the resurfacing in, we don't have paving of NBES, the middle school, or Knowlton. Those are not in, so I'm concerned about those things. Hanson Portable, we do not have that in NMS Phase 3, nope. The buses, we need a 4 and 2 for 5 years. We're going with 1 and 3 for next year. So we're shorting ourselves. And converting carpeting spaces, it was originally 70,000, but now it's actually reduced to 0
So
instead of
that's
35,000.
zero.
Yeah, that was reflected in that.
So we could also look as a board if we wanted to decrease that 745 project list.
Mhm.
I'm looking at the capital improvement ones, and there's some on here from 15, 16, 17, 16, 17, stuff that we've obviously keep pushing down the trail.
Yeah.
That we need to catch up on at some point, but there's a reason why they keep getting pushed down the trail as well. It's not a high priority. So we could, I mean, they're gonna eventually become a high priority, but we could look at shrinking that 404 if we wanted to, which would cut down to 745. We've already, in my opinion, cut down at least $15,000 out of that.
Yep.
As well as some more, depending on rental equipment.
Yeah, that looks like 16,000 out of that, and then 35,000 out of the reduction in the tax burden through the fund balance. So all of the things that you see left on in section 21 on the proposed capital improvement plans, CIP,
Came unprepared.
all of those things, all of those are priority ones. They're things that either, I mean, when you get down to this kind of a budget and you're looking at not being able to put in the bus cycle that we need, not being able to bond out, even to bond out the middle school phase 3, that I've got highlighted in orange, that to me says, if these things are out, whatever's left on that list is, we've got to get to this stuff.
I could have sworn we already did generators.
Well, we had them in, and we had them up,
Yeah.
because we were short, at the end of last school year, during the school year, before we finished out the budget process for this year.
Did we put any generators in? I think we took them
For
all.
this next year, I think we've got 2 in.
Yeah, but I mean, last year, I think.
Yeah, we had originally
We had them
scheduled
in
to do
originally,
4
and all
generators. At 30,000 apiece, I think they are,
Yeah.
so it's 120,000.
Right.
And now we're down to, so none of those happened, and we're down to trying to do 2 for next year.
Yeah.
But at 30 grand a piece, that's a decision if we want to do one.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like we need to look at this, obviously, at this budget, but, like a lot of these issues, the facilities, the special ed, these are long-term projects that are going to happen no matter what, and possibly even more reduced funding. So it seems to me that if a conversation is going to start to happen with the public, these are the issues that we need to talk about, and as communities to talk about how are we going to fund these, because obviously you can't just keep cutting textbooks to,
Gosh, no. Yeah.
Right, it's never going to add up, and I feel like grateful that the handful of people are here tonight, but there's a lot more people in the community who are not going to understand these, some of the hard conversations, but this is, we need to be looking at this obviously more than 5 years down the road, but easily 5 years down the road, especially with some of the facilities, or even just right now, even looking at the 36 additional kids that are coming into the Husky School, we know they're coming in, so let's look at what happens to them for the next 5 years, and what does that mean? So it's, I know where any budget process is going to be a sort of nickel and diming to a certain extent, but this is a conversation with the community of what, the schools and the kids can't keep, it can't all come out of them when it's a state reduction or it's, these are the communities. So I don't know, I feel like we need to be looking, the bus cycles, what is the 5-year plan for the bus with the facility? We know what those are, and those are just the conversations we have to have with the public and say, what are we gonna?
It's true.
Are we gonna put our kids on school buses that work and pass inspection or not? That's up to them.
We already have 11 buses that qualify for the replacement cycle.
Right.
We go through, we work with our mechanics here to do some of the metal work on those because the bodies wear out before the motors do. And they do a good job on that. And then things that we can't handle, we send out to Mick, and he does a great job of that, like he did with the bookmobile. Thank you, Mick. So we have a quarter of our fleet that currently qualifies, but the state in the replacement cycle, where they're offering assistance, they're only hitting buses that are, I think that the newest bus I saw was 13 years of age. I'm talking about their replacement cycle. They tell us we have 11 buses that qualify, but they're not even touching buses that are 13 to 17 years old in their replacements. So what that tells me is we're not going to get to a point where they're going to start to replace some of our buses. There are districts in other parts of the state that are in far worse shape.
Then we've got to figure out what the cost is going to be, because we have to have the buses. We have to have the buildings.
We're doing
Lebanon
600.
needs a school.
We're doing
Those things aren't going to
635,000.
go away.
I'm sorry?
Those issues are just not, they're just not going to go away. And
Yeah, but the conversation, the other devil's advocate that you'll hear talking to other folks is, well, if other districts can get their buses to last for that long, why can't you? You know, why are we replacing them earlier? Which is fine. I mean, what I've found talking to the public is two different types. One, they have kids in pro-education, or then there's fixed income types, who any increase is, it's out of their pocket. It's a real life, it's a real life
it's all out of
struggle.
our pocket. It's out of all of our pocket. It's just, it is.
True, but once you get to an age and it's the fixed, you have a certain amount of money every month, and this just means now you have a certain much less to stretch each time. And that's a tougher sell. I mean, obviously, they see what you're saying, but it's a harder thing every year to go, hey, 8%.
But it's no different for the school budget. There's a fixed, or not a fixed number of kids, but there's a number of kids. It costs a certain amount.
Oh, yeah.
It's, as a community, we have to figure out how to pay for it.
And the population is going up.
Yeah.
That's
Going up.
There's a silver lining though, is that this high school's paid off in 3 years.
2 years.
2 years. So when you're looking at some major capital improvement building projects too, I mean,
So there's
we know we're all set at that
1.67. So there's 1.67 mil that will come off, million per year that will come off after 2020. But in 2020, when the state subsidy comes out, it'll reflect like a loss of 1.67 million. So people will be thinking, holy cow, look at the hit they just took. No, it's just it's a wash between those two. So we'll be at pretty close to no debt service, major debt service on any buildings. And then the next conversation has to be about Lebanon Elementary we've done all our air quality testing, our structural engineering plans and stuff. The school is it passes all those inspections. It's not a facility that over the next 10 years, if we put in $1 million plus, that we're going to recoup that over a 30-year time span. We're not going to be able to expand the life of this building substantially because it's a wooden structure floating and shifting. So funds are not efficient to do that. So that piece, the growth that we're seeing in Berwick, we have to account for that. And the growth that we're seeing in Lebanon too, we have to account for. So those are our biggest challenges right now.
When do you see us starting the planning process for Lebanon?
So we need to have some studies done first that tells us about well, I got to get some advice on, is the property where that school is the best use of the facility there, or is it a substantial expansion at Hanson? And how does that work out? How does parking, traffic flow, how does field usage, how does the sewerage system, how do all these different components work with each other? So right now, we've got to commission a study, but that won't start until next, at least next summer. Or it's on the next budget.
Are you set to move on to employment?
I guess I have a question for folks, what, by March 29th, 6th, is it 6th?
Yeah, we got rid of the 29th.
Yeah, we went to the 26th Monday,
Oh,
remember?
so by late March, the board has to adopt a budget. So we've got some potential dates coming up, and we need to know what the board's plan is for those dates. We have March 21st, 22nd, potentially March 26th was facilities and finance, or who?
That was the board.
That was the board. Okay.
The 22nd.
Oh, we were looking to move it to the 26th, right?
We moved the 29th meeting to the 26th meeting. The board meeting, not the facilities, but the board meeting.
Yeah, okay. Is that news to people, or is that?
No?
Okay, all right.
You were there,
I'm winding it back. So we have the 21st, March 21st there's a couple of options. March 21st, March 22nd-ish, so Wednesday, Thursday. Where does the board, where do you want to go? What's your next, looking at that decision sheet and other ideas you might have, you got a couple of weeks to wrap this up.
Well, we talked about a finance and facilities meeting, if we had to have one, it sounds like we do. What, on the 21st? Monday's, this coming Monday's out, because Monday is the meeting with all the boards of selectmen, the big meeting. So Monday, this Monday's the 19th, right? That's the meeting date for the towns. And we talked about the 21st, which is Wednesday, our subcommittee coming together. Do we need to do that, or are we going to hash this all out as a board?
Well, because if there is a facilities and finance committee, if the board feels that that's a good thing to have on the 21st, the question would be, what's the charge from the board to do what in that? Because the facilities and finance committee last night came to a...
Yeah, I don't know how much more we can do as a committee now.
I don't think there's some more committee we can do either. I think it's now becoming a board decision of where you want to go.
So if we can make decisions by the 26th, or at least have something that we approve on the 26th, we need at least one more work session, where we can bring whatever we find, whatever cuts we come up with, bring it to the table, one last session, give Steve, here's our last ideas, and then on the 26th, he can come to us with...
Next Thursday night?
22nd?
Oh, what about the 22nd?
So next Thursday night, just have
It's the 22nd, right?
board budget workshop?
Yeah, so a workshop, everyone study your books, we'll bring in all of our ideas on the 22nd, we'll give you an opportunity to put together a last final budget.
So you need to give it to Steve before that, so that he can think the numbers and stuff.
Well, the workshops will be given everything, and then the 26th, the next week, he can bring it
So
out.
the budget workshop's next Thursday night.
Does that sound okay?
Denise, what are you hearing?
The turnaround for a final version on the 26th is going to be really tight.
Yeah.
I don't know if,
So we have to meet before.
Turnaround for a final budget, finals,
What day do you need?
budget on the 26th would
the
be really
20th.
tight. So if on the 22nd, if the board gives some direction about some changes, to be able to work those through all the categories that they are going to hit by the 26th is, let's see, the 22nd's a Thursday, so there's Friday.
You folks were meeting, or we're deciding not to do another facilities subcommittee, you guys done all you can. So we can do it earlier in the week next week?
Yeah, because there's only a Friday left after that, after the 22nd.
The issue, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but my phone reminded me that Tuesday and Wednesday are snowstorms. We're pushing us back to Thursday.
So I have a question. And Denise, I'm really sorry if this, I don't know if this is possible, but
And Monday's the 10th.
I have a hard time with this format. I think more in spreadsheets and lists and things, but is it possible to get, I guess the pieces of information that would be most helpful, and if I'm the only one, then we don't need to do this, but to understand the different
the different increases, like the 6.39 and the 5, and what, like you put out here, what 5.8 would be to each family in the town. That's very helpful. So it would be helpful to know what those different ones were. But also, I guess, unless everybody else now has a really clear sense of which ones of these are in the budget and which ones are not. Is everybody good on those?
I think so.
I do what you're saying.
Okay.
Well, this wasn't the best worksheet I've ever seen,
It's
no.
not, it's just not, I guess I'm used to like a budget, bottom line, or even a sub-bottom line that says, okay, here, this is what is included, that equals a 5.5% increase. This, or we could make reductions, just something that is a little.
It was definitely something that crossed my mind, because at the end of the budget, we always do a kind of a what worked, what didn't kind of meeting and to approve for the next year. And this is very beautiful mind to me. Like I can understand it because I know how Steve's thinking, but it doesn't make a lot of sense, unless you're following through.
Well,
Okay.
but that whole concern section, some of it's in there and some of it's
Yeah,
not,
right.
so I wasn't clear on that.
Yeah, but this is good because that's him just thinking, these are my concerns. He's throwing them out, so, but in a week, if I'd forgotten what your concerns were, not that I ever will, let's say I did, it would have been confusing. I mean, I'm following through, but I say I
If
understand
everyone else
her
is
point.
clear on it, then you can just pull me along, but I tend to work in spreadsheets.
Yeah.
Say that again?
I think I actually agree with Denise on that, because I found it difficult. This is like my 4th time
Yeah.
hearing it, and sunk in now, but, yeah. And what Nancy said about in the concern area too, yeah. You don't
Some things
know.
are in, some things are out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, in the meantime,
Yeah.
we need a workshop day.
Yeah.
So that's,
What's the last possible day you need us to vote on?
How about this? What about, what does it look weather-wise? Is Tuesday supposed to be the worst, or
Tuesday
Wednesday?
night? supposed to
Tuesday
be
night
worse.
Tuesday night, like.
Well, that's when it starts, yeah, so then it depends on how much it's.
What we
How much
could
are we
do-
supposed to get?
What's the last day we need to have?
Oh, March 29th is Thursday. Why did we take the Thursday out?
Monday, Thursday.
Why did we move it back to Monday?
Don't laugh.
I don't know, was that it?
Yes, it was, because I can't be here. And
Ah.
on which there was a couple other people that couldn't be there.
On which
Ah.
day?
On the 29th.
That's why we took it out. I couldn't remember. So,
Can we meet on Tuesday?
Well, how many days you need, Denise?
I guess I need a couple. If you're making final decisions on the night of the 22nd, again, Steve, did you see my question?
So that's Thursday, the 22nd?
Yeah,
Denise, let me ask you a quick question.
Yeah.
Where are you on Thursday, the 22nd?
I'm not here.
Where are you?
Away.
Like out of the country?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Good for you.
Thought I could.
I'm happy for you.
That's been, what, 5 years since you and your family have had an opportunity to take a vacation?
When's she gonna be back?
The 24th. Saturday, the 24th.
So we can meet Tuesday, Wednesday? Thursday's a no-go?
What week do you want?
27th, 28th.
Yeah, 27th, 28th?
That would be the final budget proposal.
Yeah, final.
All right, so let me offer something and get your thinking. So if we move the vote to June 12th to work with the municipalities to provide them, it does another thing for us too. It actually provides more voters. If the vote moved to June 12th, that's a Tuesday, and if the town meeting, I was reviewing some emails I had from Chris Dudley, from Laura Bragg, a couple of other folks asking questions about the same topic. And it noted in there, the turnaround that we had last year for the absentee ballots was difficult. So if we did like a May 21st, which is a Monday, the auditorium is open on Monday, the 21st. It's the only day it's open that week. 21st.
Oh, yeah, I apologize.
No, that's okay. Somebody's not checking me, I'm not sure. So, town meeting Monday the 21st would leave plenty of time, 3 weeks, for absentee ballots to come in. And if we're putting that vote off, or the town meeting, if we put it off to the 21st, that means that the board, it's 30 days, right, Denise? 30 days,
I believe
30 days
they
prior
have
to
to
the...
post the warrant 30 days before the vote.
So it would be coming up really close, but if the board took the first week of April to complete a budget and promised not to go past the first week of April, we could make that work.
Like April 5th, we've already got a...
That's a Thursday, right?
Yeah.
That's a regular board meeting?
Yep.
So if April 5th, folks did the adoption no later than April 5th.
And we might know our
Insurance.
Right.
insurance.
There's a chance of that.
Might, because they didn't.
So there's a few stars aligning right there.
Will we know about Title II?
No, that's better.
Currently,
Let's stay tuned.
When do we find out about that?
When we get, honest to God, when we get it.
When we get
The way
it.
to get it is the way that works.
That's how I do my budget.
currently, we're set for our own vote, all 3 towns sometime in May, right?
Yes, yeah, May 8th or something like that was the town meeting, and then
So
whatever, I forget the other date.
But that puts the towns have to create separate elections just for our school.
If it was on in May, if it's in May, it's a separate vote, but if it's June 12th, then it's the state, yeah.
I'd recommend we move it to the June.
I
That gives us more wiggle room and that
Get a better turnout, too.
get a better turnout, and it allows the towns to not have to do a separate thing just for us,
Yeah, I think it's good.
which I know is very good complaint.
That was that last year.
Rebecca, where are you on this? On the dates?
Okay, so you're not talking about the joint meeting, right? Is that what you're talking about?
No.
Okay, how about-
Sorry, I'm
Regular
talking
town.
the town meeting, the town meeting where people come to the auditorium
Right.
and they sit by towns.
Right, okay. Yeah, I'm fine with that.
All right, so we're looking at a budget workshop next week on the 22nd. We hammer out the last of our questions on the 22nd.
Yep.
And then that is basically our last budget day.
And then the 26th, you get together Monday the 26th well, on the 22nd, we'll know what you want to do for the 26th.
We won't need
We
the
don't need the
26th.
26.
Well, it depends.
Wow, it may take us
You could be
2 more
you could be
meetings.
really stuck and say we do need it.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
it's an option,
so
right?
we'll leave 26 as an option, but I would plan on bringing your ideas to the 22nd, make that our, as final as possible budget workshop day. Give Denise the time she needs to put together that final draft, vote for it April 5th.
So, at the end of the workshop, yeah, okay, great.
Well, we
I'll
have
go for it.
just the-
Well, if at the one of the workshop, that we're still on, we need a day, we got the next Monday.
So
Correct,
are we
that's the way I look at it.
just gonna do a workshop, or are we gonna have other stuff, though? Because that makes a big difference. I mean,
I
you know.
think it's just, well, I think we have a couple of hearings. Yes,
Hey, kids.
so I think we have a couple of hearings and a workshop.
By the 22nd.
Yes.
Okay.
That sound like a plan, everyone?
Sounds like a plan.
That works for me.
Okay.
We need to make a motion to change our vote.
No,
We don't need to make a motion to
No.
change it from May to June.
no.
So, April 5th, final vote, final answer. What is it?
Well, hopefully March 22nd is we give them all the final stuff to come to us with what we want.
It would have to be. It would
Yeah.
have to be.
Okay.
How long
Ready?
do you need to create the booklet?
The booklet's about 3 weeks, because to assemble and make sure all the numbers tie in, and then get it to print, and get it back, and then have it mailed out, about 3 weeks.
Okay.
That allows plenty of time.
I think we're good.
All right, moving on to number 12. Employment, new hires, retirement, resignation.
So we have a person by the name of Elaine Pomeroy who is shifting over, and Joanne's done so many, I run into her at every sporting event too. She's quite involved. She's been working in the district, I believe, as an educational technician, and we recently had a person, Megan Wilson, resign and take another position elsewhere from the library here. Megan was doing part-time library secretary support and part-time technology inventory control. And so Elaine Pomeroy is the person who's going to move into that position. I don't need a vote or anything on that because it's a wage position. That's all I have on that.
Outstanding. Other business?
Just a reminder, the three-town meeting is March 19th at 6:30 right here in the Johnson Library. Terry was asking me today about, can we move it to the auditorium? But the problem with the auditorium is it doesn't allow for three groups to sit and look at each other. That's not, to try to fit that onto the stage with, what did we say, 30 people?
Yeah.
29, 30 people would be really unmanageable. So is it a matter of picking up the sound, or is it a matter of getting you folks in a room looking at each other? This is our most flexible space for that. So just a reminder on that. Noble Middle School, there was a concern raised maybe a week or two ago now about one of the wings, the cafeteria band, no, not cafeteria, that's been done. The band chorus room still has asbestos tiles and so forth, and then there's a section on the third floor as well that still has it. And according to the HERA regulations, as long as you don't cut into the tiles and don't break tiles and don't do other things, you're all set. So we had a tile moved and a phone wire was pulled in and then the tile was put back. Completely responds to regulation, and that was, but to alleviate concern that anybody might have about what does that mean because something with asbestos was moved. We had band room office, band room left side, right side, chorus left and right, cafeteria entrance, and a blank lab test. And we also had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 other tests conducted that were, there were airborne asbestos fibers analytical summary and settled dust analytical summary. 100% no asbestos detected in any of the almost a dozen, probably a dozen tests on that. So we were operating within requirements and didn't think that it would cause any difficulty and didn't. So glad to be able to say that. Insurances, I've already talked to you about that. CPE already talked to you about my conversation today. And Berwick and Lebanon developments, I've already shared that.
Any others from the board? I've got a short one that I would like to discuss at a further meeting, just to get it out of the case. I had a very long and interesting conversation with a gentleman who had a lot of concerns about some of the things we do in school with sex education. And during that discussion, he asked if I knew what was on that, the form we send to parents that they sign, and I had to admit, I'm like, I really don't know what's on there. He goes, well, there's nothing in there that tells you what's really on the curriculum, and the parents should know what they're getting taught. And I went, good points. I could agree with him on that one. So if at a future meeting, maybe we can all see what's on that as a board and give it a look and see how we feel. It might be perfectly fine. But I told him I would ask about it, and I'm a man of my word. So.
Are you talking about the middle school level?
He didn't mention.
Because in the high school level, it's actually, we have the course catalog. So it tells people, right up there. So I'm not sure which one.
He didn't mention which one, but.
Guess would probably be the elementary school.
Yeah, because you gotta have a sign up, is what you were saying.
Yeah, he was saying it's something the parents had to sign, but they don't know what they're signing because it's not very detailed. It's just, I told him, honestly, I don't know what's on it. I felt bad about it. And I promised him I mentioned it today, so promise kept. I'd like to talk about it in a future meeting. No other others?
One question. Did a head track and field coach get appointed?
I haven't seen that yet, so I'm gonna say no.
Just curious about it.
Yeah, because Rob moved on to Concord or something like that. So I haven't seen that yet. I'm going to be honest with you though, I didn't get to a lot of emails in the last day or two, so if Paul and Aaron
I know they have
made a
tryouts
decision there.
or signups.
Well, sign-ups, and they start practices on the 26th, so.
Okay, with that, we're going to move on to the second round of public input.
Well, there was another here that somebody left these. I've been hiding them.
Oh, those are mine. We have had
The
our
gift from cultural night at Knoll High School contains nut flour, not dusted. So,
Thanks for that.
it says.
They're available for everybody. Do we have any public input for this evening? So you folks, step right up.
Hi there, Kimberly Parks. I live in North Berwick. And I just had a question about the funding. Do we have any group that does any fundraisers for school to supplement the school budget? Like, I know Berwick has a PTO. It says on their website for Berwick residents and students and families. So I didn't know, like, to not segregate one's town, like, how can we raise funds to add into this, so, for the budget?
So I think each of the elementary schools have their PTO organizations. There isn't a middle school or high school organization that's based on raising funds outside of the taxes to, like an educational foundation or other sort of organization.
Although about every single organization in the high school fundraises on their own.
Well, that's my point, is each, groups, fundraises for their own thing, like sports, and I know, way back when, there used to be like boosters that raised for the school at middle school and high school level, so I didn't know if maybe we could have a conversation about something like that to supplement some of this, because I know it's getting tight, it sounds really bad, it sounds like my household on a monthly basis, but single mom, but, just
About an educational foundation.
I think that would be helpful.
Yeah.
And I had one more thing about the student protest. I just wanted to, I know some people were annoyed by it, some people, said it didn't happen in the right way or time or place, but I just wanted this, like a positive thing out of this, that, Dick's and Walmart have pulled out of selling, because of this, have pulled out of selling semi-automatic weapons, ammunition, because the students were hurt. The CEO, Ed Stock from Dick's, made a statement, actually Wednesday morning, Good Morning America, but because of the students, he said, we've heard you, the nations have heard you, and he made all kinds of changes for Dick's, raised the age to 21 to buy any firearm. They don't sell high-capacity magazines, they don't sell military-style weapons anymore, and Walmart's pretty much the same. So, on a positive note, because I know there was so much negativity and things were up in the air with the Facebook boards were out of control, but I just wanted to show a negative impact, a positive impact that the students did have, and they were hurt.
Yeah, and the piece that the kids did today in the high school, completely student-driven. They came up with it. I thought it was extremely well done, very poignant, memorable.
And because of the numbers, it was a nationwide thing, that's what got my attention. We're better in numbers. Anyway. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all. Rashidi, thank you.
I'm Kathy Sheedy from Berwick, and I just had a question about something very specific to our school. We had 2 threats last week, I believe, where a student made a threat in the school, and there was some repercussions for those 2 students. But the way that it was handled is in question, I guess, or the way it was voiced to parents was one of the questions I think that was raised by the students that protested today, was that the first threat was made, but nothing was said to the parents or the students about that particular threat until I think 8:30 at night. And although there was a lot of investigation going on and there was a lot of things going on in the background, which I understand, there's a lot of chatter going on between when that happened and 8:30 at night. You have hundreds of parents and hundreds of students all talking to each other and formulating their own ideas of what's happening. And is it safe to go to school the next day? You have kids texting each other, whatever. And there was nothing that came out until 8:30 at night, or whatever time it was, I'm not sure exactly.
I think that's when it was.
And then what was actually said was, I believe, just your policy on how a threat is handled wasn't necessarily specific to that student or that threat. So it was still very up in the air whether or not that student would be at school the next day. There was a lot of question, you know, what's being done, what's going to be changed for the next day? Would there be more, you know, security on staff? Would there be more police on staff? Would anything be different the next day? And that was not voiced to anybody. And then the next day the kids went to school and they heard about a second threat. And so I believe a remind notice went out about the second threat on the next day, but not everybody got that because not everybody is signed up for that. So I think the communication when a threat goes out for our specific school something needs to change so that the students feel safer and that the parents are aware of what's going on quicker, because kids have texts, you know, they can email parents, they can text their parents. I can communicate with my student throughout the day via email, via text messages, whatever. And that is true for 600 students or whatever at this school. And then you have parents on Facebook or whatever formulating their own ideas and what's going on. So you have a lot of chatter going on about your threat when you're investigating. And even just, you know, an email or something that goes out and says, you know, your students are safe, this is what we're doing. I think the communication needs to be quicker, and it needs to be a little bit more informative than just sending out a list of your policy. It needs to be very specific about this is what we're doing right now to make your students safe. And I think that was one of the things that the students that walked out of the school today, they were trying to voice that concern as well, is that they want to see what's changed here to make the students safer here. You know, it wasn't just about, you know, what happened at that other school. It was more about, you know, it was also about what happened here last week. And I think, you know, we need to look at how we voice what's happening to parents and students quicker.
I agree with you. I agree that a more timely message and more specific to the incident at the time.
And I think we need to figure out how to get the message out to everybody, because I know we have something in place to get messages out to the parents and everything, but it doesn't go to everybody. I got the first message, I didn't get the second. I don't know why, but it did. But that happened to me. I got the very first email that you sent out to everybody about the threat, but I didn't get the second one. I found out through Facebook, seeing a post from someone else. And I know that other people have voiced the same concern, that they're not all getting the messages. So I don't know how it gets communicated to parents, but it's not consistent.
So you're on the remind, and you
Yes.
got one notification, but the next day you didn't get the next notification.
Correct.
I've had the same issue. The Remind program does not seem, so it's a great program. It doesn't seem user-friendly. I wasn't able to create myself on any of the groups that I needed to. Jen set me up on the high school. I couldn't find the high school. I get elementary schools, but I wasn't getting anything for the high school, so I found out on Facebook, and I'm a board member. You know, we definitely need to work on some communication issues with our way of communicating with our parents, and I'm not sure Remind is the right one.
Keep in mind that Remind is and was designed to be a part of a student and teacher. It wasn't supposed to be an admin and parent kind of deal. It was as a way for students to contact their teachers in the classroom. Well, there was a few other things I had to say actually about the.
Before you speak, could you introduce yourself and what town?
I'm Cormac Mallet. I'm from Berwick. I'm a freshman. I did walk outside today. I struggled with the concept of that, but I felt like it was the right thing to do for people's voices to be heard. and that was, I think, foremost in that decision. But with the threat-wise, it I actually first used for mine to try to, as an organizer for my work, and then I realized that I had downloaded it because my mom had downloaded it for the school, and it's, I think, a direct messaging application would be more useful than something that wasn't designed for this purpose. But also, let's see, with the communication in general, I disagree. There was a post on Instagram of one of my friends, and it was a direct screenshot of what was sent out of Remind, and it did say specifically what the threat was, and not necessarily who it was, but how it came to be.
That was on the second one.
And again, it's not perfect.
Yeah.
It's something to be considerate of. And the students who walked out, I know, are all curious about the consequences of their actions, although not necessarily regretting it. I think would like to know what further action.
Yeah, so it's going to fall under any typical, if the student cuts a class, what happens with a class cut. So the teachers and the administration will work that through with the students that miss classes.
Yeah.
There were some students who were pretty serious-minded about what they were doing and had a good focus there today. And then there were other kids who were just doing the teenage thing of, it's a great way to get out of class. And
yes, I do agree with that. There was many people who did not seem as actively a part of the protest as I would have liked.
Yeah.
And I had talked with my science teacher before, and she said, it's a hard thing, you're going to have to talk about it. This is something that you should say, but you have to make sure you're going out there for the right reason. And I know I was, but there were several people who wasn't. But I can't express to you how much we would like to be heard. And I think that we have, at least on a small level, and that's a baby step, but it's getting somewhere. And the people who organized this were very passionate about it and wanted nothing more than the school's safety and just the general, just the fear of coming to school. They wanted that gone, and of course you can't get rid of it. But that was their main concern, although there were many reasons why people came out. One of them being that they felt the organized protest at the beginning of the day was not that it wasn't long enough, but it wasn't appropriate as to what they wanted to say. So I think that they had a lot more that they felt was on their mind. Like when we were talking to the reporter, he asked us what our next plans were, and we were like, we have to make this change. We have to actually see a change. But then other people just wanted, most of the people out there, they wanted to be safe, and they wanted to know that they could come to school being like, just, I'm here. This is not somewhere where I'm going to lose my life. And however many percentage of the schools in the U.S. who actually have a school shooting is, I'm sure, very small, but it's not about how many people actually die. It's the risk and the actuality of people coming into our school and making it a dangerous place to be. And one of the things that we wanted was not necessarily a better but more aware security system, so that it would ensure the safety of everybody there. And I happened to see a janitor maybe doing something on the doors earlier this week. I don't know what it was, but we were out there all day. I don't know if I was installing some sort of security measure or not, but...
Oh, the front doors?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. And I think I think people want to know that there's something being done. That was a big part of it. And a lot of the students, they want to know something's happening and that it mattered, because if the entire thing was for no reason, none of us would have done it. We were freezing. It was not fun. We knew we were doing something, but we wanted to be heard. And a lot of kids thought that it wasn't fair that, and I'm not putting this on you guys, but they thought it wasn't fair that the adults had to tell them what to do to be able to protest their views. And they thought the idea of protesting would be the free protest and be able to say we are defying the rules because we want to do this, because this matters to us. And they thought that having someone in a higher power position put them in an area to listen to a presentation or just sit and think. Although representative of the 17 students that lost their lives, they wanted something more. They wanted to be heard, not just to recognize that they wanted something to change.
So let me just look into that for a minute, Cormac. So did students who were out front know that the thing that was decided on in the auditorium was decided on by students' body members? Like it was hands off? It
Yes, I did notice that the person who helped organize that event was outside, and not the other person. I think the only member of student council who went outside. But
So you think people knew?
Yes, I was aware that there was a meeting. I mean, the email was sent out to everybody.
Yeah.
But not many people went to that. I did not go. I had a math test.
Yeah.
But it's people. It's not. I mean, I'm not saying everybody knows everything and that they think they should be in charge of making decisions, but they wanted something more, which we all do, and people are not going to stop until they see that. And I don't know whether that means more walkouts. I don't think it should. I think it should mean organized agreement and some sort of just general, everybody who cares about this school should do something about it. And whether that's you guys or the students, and they are. And I think they want to know that you guys are. And obviously you care about the school and you want the best for it. I think the students who were involved with this want to know that too. And they want to know that something's changing. That's, I think, their main concern.
I definitely heard also that they weren't going to stop. That they weren't going to stop. That's what I had heard through like the grapevine, so you might want to be prepared for.
I think really the key to this, and the key to so many situations, is good communication. Question you had was, you noticed someone was working on doors, but no one has mentioned to the students yet what that work is done. And what sort of relief would that have been to the student body if, hey, we've heard you, we're updating our security?
I think
Making
yes.
folks feel so safer about that.
I also think that we're at a point with this conflict where it's not, there's not much to hide. I mean, people want to know that they're being more safe than they were, and they are, but not everybody knows that. And of course there's things that you should, not necessarily everybody should know, but it's important to them that they understand at least.
Another small point I'd like to make is, and I applaud you for doing what you thought was right and face the consequences that come with it, as they are. One thing I'd like you to bring back too is, even though this was a national issue, students' voices deserve to be heard. And this is a very good venue for it as well. We get very few students that come here. And you folks are people just like everybody else with your own needs and concerns. And one way to get those concerns addressed, and I hope you feel comfortable up there because you should be, that podium's for you just like anybody else, is encourage students to come to the school board meeting. Let us know. Because it's all about communication.
Absolutely.
If we know what's affecting the student body, we can affect change to help out. Like you said, there's not a person here around this table that doesn't want to do what's best for the students in the schools. But if we don't know, we're not going to be able to. And I applaud your bravery for stepping up there. You're a very good speaker. I can't believe you're a freshman.
On my way down here today, I was listening to an interview on NPR with a school principal, and they were talking about exactly what you were talking about, is how to affect change, how to improve communication with the student body. And one of the things that this principal has decided to do is once a month or once every 2 weeks, I don't remember what the frequency was, just to have lunch meetings with kids. So kids could come and tell them what's on their mind. And also setting up a tip line so that anybody who hears or sees something can anonymously report it, so it can be checked.
Yes, I do agree with that a lot of students in the student body do not like the things that are said, but can't do much about it. And I know that there's a lot more that is said that is not reported or heard by a teacher, because in reality, the only time that something is brought to a broader attention is because a teacher overheard, or it's unlikely that another student would bring it up. And it does happen, but it's, I think if there is, an easier way to communicate with the group of you between the students would be very beneficial in multiple ways regarding the threats and dealing with them and just general concerns like this.
And I can say that, I haven't been on the board for very long, but I can say that once a concern makes its way to the administration, it is dealt with.
Absolutely.
And it's not shoved aside.
I can see that.
And we definitely have your safety at heart.
Yeah.
I think it'd be appropriate, and I don't want to take these things for granted, having spent a lot of time working in schools, but maybe we should put on an agenda for the April 5th meeting, maybe a review of some of our safety procedures and so forth. I do have a concern, and have had a concern with a son in county law enforcement, a nephew on the police force in Berwick. We live in a rural area. North Berwick has an excellent small police force, but there are only 2 police officers on typically during the day. And I guess I'd like to, have we made any arrangements to contact with county sheriffs? What's their response time? I know we have a lockdown, all our doors are locked on the outside. I do know that before you came on board, Steve, we had an individual, we sort of had a backup plan with our resource officer, because we had employed an individual who was an ed tech, and he was monitoring television screens all the time about activity outside. They had a room set over here. Actually, it was a really good.
Was that Al?
Solid Al did that, and he had some training for that. He's former military himself, naval and marine, and he did a good job of that, and it was a good backup system, because we do have an excellent camera system in place.
I definitely want, I like the idea of that, but I don't want to get into too much of the specifics, which I don't think we can anyway. Because the last thing I want to publicly discuss is all of our safety issues.
No, just a general review. No, I don't want to get into specifics. I don't want that all public.
Well, maybe it just as a part of the spirit of communication
Yeah.
is to review the fact that we do have certain things in place, and to make it very clear that we can't actually go
Right.
into detail rather than just sort of
Yeah.
skimming over that part of
Exactly.
it. So to say, we do have this, and for these reasons, we don't publish them, and we did just make an improvement. I think
Well,
The
just to be really transparent about the front door, it was a heck of a coincidence that we had, a couple of weeks ago, we had moved, if you came to the front door and you went to buzz in, it was right at the drip edge. So all we did was move the buzzer to the middle door so that it's not under the drip edge. The other thing that we did do, and we've done in our other schools, is we ordered not just a camera system, but a speaker system, so that we can have the officers ask, what is the purpose of the visit? So that is an upgrade, but the other piece that students were thinking was really just sort of coincidental, it wasn't about an upgrade, it was just convenience.
Just in regards to the planning, with my other job, I would say that I'm always reviewing those plans, and I'm actively reviewing them right now for the Berwick schools. And I know I just met today with two of the principals in Berwick, and they're always being reviewed. We're always making tweaks to them as they come on. But I think as a board, I think it might be worthwhile for us to look at a future position to have somebody that is, their main task is to oversee those things. Because just the three that I've reviewed in the last 3 weeks, I've seen some discrepancies that we need to adjust, and we're working on them, and we're adjusting them. But it's not, there's a lot of, it's school, police, fire, EMS. We all need to get on the same page. What the school's gonna do versus what I'm gonna do when I walk in as a fire department could be two totally different things. We need to all be able to get together and hash these out. In Berwick, I'm working on that. The other towns, I don't believe, have that availability, but it's something that we should be able to do, and it happens. If there was, God forbid, ever be an issue, all the towns are going to come together and fix the issue. You're not going to have just Northburg PD showing up with 2 people. You're going to have Northburg PD showing up with probably 4 people.
Well, it's a question of response time.
You're going to have Berwick showing up with 5 people because they're there. There's not. It looks like there's only 1 person on in Northburg or 1 person on in Berwick, but there's also 2 or 3 admin people in the office that are going to come out as well. So the safeties are there. We're never going to be able to save, protect everybody from everything, because if they want to do something, they're going to do it. But we do have the systems in place to keep us safe, and they're constantly being reviewed frequently. And every year the school has to do it.
It's designed to be as safe as possible and to minimize risk.
Correct.
And I think to allow Mr. Mallett here to have a seat after the fact, I think what we need to work on is the communication of the student body to let them know that we have things in place, just to remind them that their safety is foremost in our minds, and we'll make improvements as we can.
We can't release those to the public for obvious reasons.
Right.
Because
I mean, even
we don't
things
want to
like,
tip our hand.
even such things like response times. You know, we don't want to make that public so someone knows exactly whatever the
I'm
number
just
is.
looking for a general discussion of, some of the systems we have in place, and just what you said tonight, Travis, would be beneficial for the rest of the board.
Yeah. All right, anything else?
So one more thing about the communication between the admin and the parents. So the bomb threat a couple of years ago, I know that the first thing that the school board wanted to do was get all the kids to safety before anything else. That included contacting parents, and I know a lot of people freaked out. A lot of parents were scared, and obvious reasons. I mean, but
Was that when we cleared the school out and went to the middle school?
Yeah.
And then we had an incredible flood of parents who just showed up because their kids were on their cell phone saying, I don't want to be here, come and get me.
Yeah.
And then parents decided that's a good idea.
Yeah, and I feel like admin is doing the best they can to make sure the safety of the kids before anything else, including the communication, so that it will come as a disadvantage, but it's comes first. So also, how much did you say you spent on school buses? Sorry, this number shocked me.
A big bus is 82,000, a small bus is, I don't have it in front of me, let's say it's, what? 50
So
something thousand.
82,000 for making it heavier, removing seat belts, making the center of gravity higher. It's just a lot. Strange. And also with the Wi-Fi thing, so I'm not a wizard of Wi-Fi, surprisingly, but I know that, so question with was it because teachers were being kicked off the Wi-Fi? Is it the Chromecast that wasn't working? Because I know that on my phone during that time, there was a Wi-Fi symbol on my phone that said, you have Wi-Fi. That doesn't mean I have internet. So I'm curious if you turned off the internet, but not the Wi-Fi, therefore leaving us on the broadband and taking up the same amount of data space, but not actually
Really simple
transferring.
answer for you on that. See the color of this? See that? Okay. I have novice level, I'm not a digital native, I will admit that. I have this person by the name of Mr. Russo, that he and I see eye to eye, we're about the same height. So he's the guy I rely on to say, so what's the issue with this thing? And he explains it to me and I say, okay, blah, 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 let's go to the next thing. So I would say that specific question, Mr. Russo could answer for you in 4 seconds.
I think that's what happened, because I tried to get on my laptop and it said I was on it said I was online, but when I opened a window, there was no internet.
It also did seem to get worse after, even on the computers, it seemed to get worse.
All right, well, thank you, Paul. We had someone else raise their hand? Yes, go.
Sorry.
I just wanted to talk about your security system in the school.
Before we start, could you introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Jill Farwell, and I live in Berwick.
Thank you.
And I just want to remind you that your security provider would be happy to come out and give you free expert advice on any upgrades that you want to make in the system at all the schools. And he's a local guy, and he's a taxpayer in Berwick. So
When you say you're a security provider, could you say that in a different way for me?
American Security Alarm, he does your security system. So he's happy to come out and give free advice on any upgrades at any point. So I just wanted the board to know that.
That's good.
Thank you.
I wonder if it would be interesting for students to ever meet with them, just to understand security.
For what?
For students, like if students would ever be interested in sitting down with them, just to understand how security works and cameras and systems.
He'd be happy to come do whatever,
Yeah, it might be reassuring for kids.
Or just educational.
Yeah.
Any other public input this evening? Okay. Seeing none, as the executive session number 15 has already been taken care of, last thing on the agenda is adjournment. Really? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Oh, Nancy. All those in favor? 9-0, you got here. Folks, thanks for coming this evening.